It's on that shorty new year, shorty new year. Come along to Camp Shorty, we're so glad you're here. Camp Shorty is where you will find family. Our mod Avengers will greet you with glee. At Camp Shorty, you can shine and shine bright, because in Shorty Camp leader is a fucking delight.
Hey, shorties, good to see you. Taryn, good work on the intro. I'm so proud of you and so proud of us. Teamwork makes the dream work, mate. Hi, everyone. Hi. Hi. Hey, tell me if my microphone's too loud mostly compared to the video, like the stuff we're playing, because I was watching back yesterday's stream and I think it was a little loud. I've turned the volume down a smidge. I've gained it down. So let me know if I'm too booming. I'll push it away or whatever. We'll work this out together. Who's here? Lois Cox. Good evening. Always enjoy learning. Thank you for providing. My pleasure, Lois. Get to the ducking point. Hi, ducking. Holly's here. Girl, thank you very much for having my back on the old Twitter. They're delightful, aren't they? Hi, Ava's mom. Yes. Good. Good to see you. Taryn. Hey, bitches. Yes, Kraken. Boom. Kraken comes in with a boom. Hi, Amber. Good to see you, darling. Who else is here? Gee, Forrest. Well, hello. Poppy's tummy's gurgling away over there. Stephanie. Gorgeous. Steph and I had a little moment last night where she sent me an audio message, which in itself was so exciting because normally Steph does. Hi, Poppy. Normally the Steph has been doing voice to text messages, which are gorgeous in themselves. And she worked out how she did an audio message. And then I got all overwhelmed with like, oh my God, we're friends and we're so cute. And I love you guys so much. And I was bawling my eyes out. And anyway, it's a whole thing. Girl code. Colors. Hi, gorgeous. Good to see you. Taryn, Dave T. Dave T's been doing a bit of a troll through my shorts, my older, my YouTube shorts. That's how rumors start, Dave. KKK. Styling one. Hi, good to see you. I love those sunflowers. That's beautiful. Lovely Beth. Hi. Laura's here. Beautiful. I really can't see things. Digitally. Hi from Chile, Vermont. Meanwhile, I'm just thinking to myself here in Melbourne, Australia, that it's starting to get a little warm and maybe I should have rethought my tights option. I'm wearing tights, not shorts. Poppy's licking me, so it must be time for Shorty. Poppy, what you lick me for? She says, I'm so excited because today we're drawing the draw. Raffle. I've got all the little names. Oh, of course, they're pink on little slips. And I'm going to do this, not just yet. So if you've been here for the last 3 nights, which most of you have been, well, basically it's just a Vegemite raffle with a few other things thrown in, right? Poppy, can you please just not? I love you very much, but don't lick me. Yeah, I love you. I do, but it's really a bit too much. I'm trying to be professional. Hey, Po, good to see you, Shelley. Joseph's here. Fantastic. Oh, no, I missed the raffle. Well, I was just thinking then, because I'm not going to draw it for a little while, and this sounds like a massive grift, but it's not. If I'll be already a member. Oh, no. If anybody, I'll draw it I'll draw it on the hour of, what's the time? 7. I'll draw it at 8. Is it 7? What time is it? God, I don't even know what day it is. So it sounds like a grift. It's not. Just everybody. I got my Sharpie to write the things on. So yeah, if you want. Hi, Moon Goddess. Good to see you. Of course. Good to see you. Oh my goodness, guys. Oh, members. There are Poppy and Buster emotes in the chat. Guys, there's new Poppy and Buster emotes. So if you would like to bust out the derp dingleberries, right, Steph? Whap. Hi, shorties. 5 in Colorado. That sounds cold. So maybe it makes you shorties feel a little cold. Cold looking at me in a tank top, right? But I can't. Oh, Joseph. Here he is. Coming in hot with a 5. You must be spending big tonight, Joseph. Joseph, I put your name in, I think 4, maybe even 5 times in the raffle because Lord knows. Oh, hi, Baker. Grifters are so bad. Imagine having grifter merch, right? Baker, shame on you, sir. Shame on you. Do better, man. Good to see you, Baker. 5 p.m. I thought you meant 5 degrees, and 5 degrees Fahrenheit is very fucking cold. Still no boobies. No, sorry, Kevin. I could add 2, not 2 boobs, 2 emotes, and the resounding cries for Poppy and Buster emotes were far louder than your single lone voice from the dark corners of the adult cinema going, boobies. 5 o'clock shadow, 5 o'clock, 5 p.m. Right. Poppy and Buster. That's them. Girl, I'm wearing a tank top while legs are covered by an electric blanket. Well, that sounds like balance, life balance. You're doing it right, Kraken. 100%. Poppy and Buster. We're just running a hard grift. It's all we're doing. I don't even love the grift. I've got grifter in my Twitter bio. So, love the 2 emojis. Good. Glad. It's hard. I don't have many photos of them. I've got plenty of videos of those 2 derp dingleberries, but photos not so much. Poppy, as soon as she even gets the sense that I'm going to be like taking a photo, she goes at me. So funny dog. 1 booby would totally suffice. I'm not greedy. Well, then that would look like moon goddess's eye, evil eye, seeing eye, third eye, little emote. Yes. 1 a.m. for Baker. Good night, Baker. Thank you so much for popping in. I really appreciate you always showing your grifter, underwhelming self around these streets of Camp Shorty. Thank you so much. Good to see you. Sleep well, sir. We're all sweating like Trooper Paul up here in Queensland. Oh, hi, Nick. Good to see you. Yeah, so Nick, I live down the bottom of Australia. Not all the way down, but mostly all the way down. And Nick lives pretty close to the very top. So if you think I'm here hot, Nick's like sweating balls to the windows and the walls. Good night, Baker. Thank you, Joseph. Joseph's started off with a 5 and he's it's going to be all green. Joseph, are you just trying to get my eyesight to go even worse? Dave's channel's here. The show may begin. Woo! I mean, if you're here, Dave, we can definitely get started. Someone's going to timestamp the shit out of it anyway because she starts here. Hi, Dave. And I even turned off the loop. No loop. No repeat cheering or anything. Joseph, I can't keep up. How many time zones does Australia have? I think 3. I think East Coast, Central. I should know. I've driven all the way across. 3, maybe 4. I think there's a couple of half-hour different ones. I don't know how that works. And then when you get to Western Australia, you go, oh, it's 4 hours later time. 4 hours. But then to Queensland doesn't have daylight saving. Weirdos. Because they didn't want their curtains to fade with more sunlight in the summer. True. That's what they thought. Obviously, that's not science. Not Nick. Nick would understand that's not how that things work. But back in the 80s or whenever it was, the 80s, when they voted on daylight savings, they said, yep, it's going to be a no from us. We'd prefer just to be woken up at 3 o'clock in the morning in the height of summer. Isn't that right, Poppy? Isn't that right? Well, you can sit down now. I love you very much. Dave's channel's green now. God, now I can't see you. Dave. Catherine W., hi from Arizona. Well, hi from Melbourne. Victoria. Joseph Kane is the goat. Well, I always thought that was God of all things, and then someone told me it wasn't God of all things, but I can't remember what it is, so that's awkward. Because some things my brain remembers forever, and some things my brains never, ever remember. Will you send me a koala? Chelsea, hi. Koalas often have chlamydia. Do you really want a koala? I mean, I'll see what I can do. I was going to go to a like an Australiana store, but I actually don't leave the house unless I'm going to work. I haven't even walked out the front door or even the back door for a week. I love that for me. But in the raffle, I'm going to see if I can put a few more things in. If you're wondering, like Scott McGuinness's Scott McGinnis has he wants the Vegemite. He loves Vegemite. He told me all he can think about day and night is Vegemite. So in the raffle, there's a giant jar of Vegemite, a bunch of, like, a packet of Tim Tams, mint slice, a bunch of chlamydia. Sorry. Yes. Hi, Prince Lover. Now all I can think of koalas with chlamydia. That's great. I'm glad we went there. Thanks, chat. We've gone feral early, on brand. Some Darryl Lee chocolate stuff, Rocky Road, a bag of Maltesers, a cool pair of shades because I'm cool, and if I'm cool, and it was cute at the time, but I bought matching sunnies for Satan, and well, that I've already got these. These are mine. There's another pair unopened in the raffle. See, if you've seen my any of my shorts, any of my real world being at work and shit shorts, them, too savage. They're in the raffle, and the grifting isn't that great because it'll cost me more to post it to the States than I will. Well, I'll crack even, maybe cracking. Put my glasses back on. They're just pretend glasses anyway. I can barely see. They're just off Amazon. Lol. Plot twist. I never thought that my childhood dream would lead to a venereal disease. Well, neither. And I don't have a venereal disease. But funny story. As most of you will know, but let's just blast all those. I'm going to expose her for all of her secrets. Oh, sorry, I don't have any secrets. $50 in shipping? Biffle, there's no way. Hi, Biffle. Biffle in the house. Biffle needs his own bumper. Is it working? Did it work, Amber? Motherfucker. Maybe it works in the YouTubes. Does it work? Sorry, we're just testing out, what's it called? The thing. Nightbot. So, funny story. I don't think it worked. Is it too early to say cunt? Cunt, hard T. So in Australia, sex work is legal, right? So before all your pearl clutches, and you can still clutch your pearls, whatever, that's fine. And if you don't know already, spoiler alert, I used to be a sex worker, quite a successful one. Anyway, I was working in the most opulent establishment in Australia called Gotham City. And I happened to have the eve of my 40th birthday at the brothel. How horrible. Laura says, how horrible. I think she's talking about koalas, but anyway, it is kind of horrible. Cunt. Right. Never too early to say cunt. Agreed. Hard agree. You guys really, you took that ball and you run with it, right? I love you all. Taryn, the 69 Queen, right? Anyway, so it was about 9 p.m. on a Friday night at the brothel at Gotham City, and it was a lounge area, so a big lounge where girls were just walking around in their lingerie or like little tiny dresses and shit, bikinis, and the guys would sit on like Chesterfield lounges and things, and it was packed, standing room only, like, well, not shoulder to shoulder, but packed. And suddenly someone came out of the manager's office out the back carrying a giant, like a platter with a giant mud cake covered in sparklers, those, sparklers. And they started singing happy birthday, the whole lounge. And then, like, the surrealness of it all, for them to have sung happy birthday, dear Sky. That was my working name, Sky, lol. No shit, Biffle liked it. And they sang it all. I'm like, just looking to myself, this is the most random thing. When you're 8 or 7, do you ever think that when you're turning 40, you'll be in a brothel being sung to, not even you, your persona, by a bunch of hoes and johns? Life goals, Pen. Life goals. You're welcome. Ha ha ha. My phone is at 69%. Hey, Mello. You've changed your name a little bit. AKA arrest warrant. I love Melissa Filson. Hey, I'm recently new to your channel, Miss Shorty, and loving it. Welcome. I hope you're not scared off by that anecdote, that one there. Mud cake. It was bloody delicious. Always think of the Australian sitcom Fisk. I haven't seen it, but I know of it, and they're funny people. I'll jump out of your birthday cake. Biffle, I knew I could count on you. Ta-da. Thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you for always being so supportive of the channel of our community. This. So that, Woo! Yes, woo. Congrats on the new membership. That was quick. There it is. She's here, and now she's green. That's how we do it around here. So how is everybody after last night? We waded through some 69 in the chat, Taryn. 69 watching. Hi, it's Taryn's number. We don't mind it. Kevin prefers 96 because of inflation, but timely manner, made it in a timely manner. I'm proud of you. I was only 2 minutes late. Did I call that a win? 68 now. Someone went, nah, fuck it. I'm not staying. 69 my ass. Ooh. My birthday was December 18. Happy birthday, Catherine. 69. There it is. Joseph Kane, thank you. People are always so appreciative. I feel like it's a stitch up so that I really can't see anybody's name unless I put your comment on the screen. 69 again. Thank you, whoever. 96. Thanks, Kevin. There it is. Hit the like. Yes. Have you hit the like yet? Kraken says good. Needed to decompress, but good. Yes. Or have you heard my new song? Haven't written one for a week. And then I woke up at 3 because that's how I roll, obviously. And I'd been turning this song around over in my head, not even particularly consciously, just and I just sat up on the edge of my bed and like busted out the lyrics into my notes app on my phone. I want to say 15 minutes max, but then let's just say that I have time blindness. So let's call it 20 minutes. I had one typo, of course. So the first iteration I couldn't use because there was a typo, and the Suno music app reads the typos, which is fantastic. But it's a bit fire. It's very relevant. My point is there was a nexus between Kraken's comment and my asking how you all are after last night and this song, because thanks, Kevin. You like it? Oh no. How old's your son, Stan? I'm the truth teller in my family's narcissism, and narcissism enabling dynamic. Therefore, I am the outsider. Narcissists do not like the truth, and I'll tell you what, they're not loving the song either. Let me just find it for you. And we'll play it. It's only 2.5 minutes, and I don't know. You tell me. And then we'll get into watching some stuff about the Dark Triad. 17 minutes. Those timestamp folk are going to be losing their ever-loving minds that I've taken up to 20 minutes to get going on the topic. Hey, who's this? Hi, Claire F. Hi, Claire F. UK. We are international. I'm going to miss saying hi to a few people because I want to. Oh, Pia. Hi, darling. I didn't get back to you with your email. I'm sorry. I was all brained out yesterday. I will today. What am I doing? Like now, not bigger picture, because who knows? This, you'd think I'd never done this before. Like every single time I'm like, okay, how do I do this? It's only so that you can see the machinations of my brain. I'm very transparent. Okay, so these are I have a whole playlist. This is my body of work. They're just the shorts. Where's the playlists? Playlists. I just made a new playlist for this particular topic. Let's talk narcissists, because we're going to do a lot of so there's a whole let's talk let's talk neurodivergence. There's a whole just all of the let's talk, anything that isn't Karen Reed or Johnny Depp or Jean-Benet Ramsey or members only is in let's talk. But there's my music playlist. It's got the MSP badge as the first song. So however now it's going to blast my ear out, but I hope it doesn't blast your ears out. If you've got it cranked up, maybe turn it down a little bit.
Scorched earth flamethrower, deceit all knower, rage tweet, dirty delete, guilty of it all. pathological fallacies, prey on vulnerabilities, pillar of deception, no culture for redemption. False narratives driven hard, rotten to the core, the space is bad. Cultivate toxicity, mind gymnastics, elasticity, got 'em all laughing about the palm of your hand. Scorched earth, flamethrower, DC on no war. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all. Double down, that shame, rage cycle. Malignant, grandiose, perpetually prideful. Expecting nothing less, it's interesting to see the disintegration of your sanity. Scorched earth, flamethrower, deceit all knower. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all. Like wow, holy cow, delusions running wild. Like wow, holy cow, feeding your inner child. Scorched earth, flamethrower, deceit all knower. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all. Double down, that shame, rage cycle. Malignant, grandiose, perpetually prideful. Expected nothing less, it's interesting to say the disintegration of your sanity. Scorched earth, flamethrower, deceit all knower. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all.
They don't love it. They don't love it. Narcissists don't love the truth. So that's that. It's on my playlist if you want to have a listen. She's a banger. It's because it's a short. If you play it, it just plays on repeat. Yes. Loving the drums and the music, the beat. Yes, cool. Huh. Okay, so 22 minutes in. Bun Bun Jazz is here. Good to see you, Bun Bun. Van. It's so good. Thanks. I put the style that I put in. Of course, Buster wants to go outside. The style that I put in was Christian rock. The irony. And there was I think it was the first one after I fixed the typo. It was the very first one that came out. Easy peasy. Half an hour. Boom. Give me a problem I can't solve. Okay, let's watch something. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Dark Triad. Awesome song. Thanks. Bang, bang. Awesome song? Yes. It sounds like we could make a step dance to the beat. Yes, I used to be a step instructor, Moon Goddess. It would probably, it would have to be a freestyle step. It doesn't have that underlying 8/8 count. Hey, Kelly Steffi. Good to see you. Thanks again, Joseph. Yikes, it's just raining green in here. I mean, flamethrower. Christian rock. Yeah. They give those big soaring lyrics and the heavy beat. Always. If that's the sound I want. The dirty delete. I mean, people who have nothing to hide delete nothing, right? Okay, so the Dark Triad. Moving on. Topic reminder. Focus. Love you guys, chat. Shorties. So we spoke. If you haven't watched it last night, we did a big in-depth thing about malignant and grandiose narcissists, what they do when they feel like they are powerless. Hi, Buster. Buster emojis in the chat. Hey, Bussy. We learned about covert narcissists and what happens if the narcissist knows you know. So there's a good bit of groundwork there. It can be a little triggering for some people, many of us, this topic. Most of us have come in contact with a narcissist at some point in our life, and that's not necessarily to say that it's just in an intimate partner relationship. Oh my God, I didn't have that phrase yesterday at all. And it came to me like this. I must be a professional. It could be a boss, a colleague, a family member, a parent, a schoolmate, a friend. Not all assholes are narcissists, but all narcissists are assholes. Same goes for psychopaths. Not all narcissists are psychopaths, but all psychopaths are narcissists. It's a whole thing. So this dark triad theory, it's been around for a few decades at least, is that there are certain people in our world that have this cluster of three very dark personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. So that's what we're going to learn about. So it might be a little like these are the more egregious of the narcissists, because it's that cluster of personality traits. And again, scorched earth is relevant, and as is this topic tonight. So we're just learning about things so that we could. So we're not looking. Okay, so disclaimer, and we'll repeatedly say this throughout the night, but I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not a medical doctor. I have some pretty decent lived experience with narcissists. Having said that, I did think that I was the expert, and with my pride and my ego and my feeling of almighty lofty understanding of narcissists, did not pick one who scooted in under the radar with me very recently. I'm keeping my pirate flag tattooed to remind me to never be prideful again, not just about that, but about everything in life. Because once you get there that you think you know everything, you don't know anything. So we learned last night about covert narcissists, which is, I think, why I didn't pick. There are more subtle. Their narcissistic traits are less overt, less obvious, less sort of stereotypical, the garden variety narcissist that we all know and love. But the dark triad hopefully won't be quite so triggering for people tonight, because these are like the reverse cream of the crop of the narcissists out there, like the baddies. It's the bad guys. It's the really bad ones. So we're going to start with a very like a shortish clip, which is, I think, a little, fingers crossed I've got them in the right order, but what is the dark triad? This one, I think. Yeah. Okay. But if you need to take a step away, this is for educational purposes, not medical diagnosis. If it is triggering for you, please take a moment. Before I do anything, replay crew, if you are watching on a device, like a handheld device, like an iPad or an iPhone, Buster's making noise with his deer antler. So that's what they're doing. So if you're on a handheld device and you would like to watch the live chat replay on your phone or your iPad, all you need to do is swipe so you go to the comments tab, but don't tap on it. Just swipe left on I can never tell. Left, whatever left is for you guys. And it will give you the option to watch the live chat replay instead. Thank you, Taryn. Bloody Nightbot. We're going to get it sorted, so we just have to type one word and have to copy and paste stuff. Hey, let's go. So, oh my God, the poor timestampers, 28 minutes 42. Here we go. Oh God, full screen. So this is a short video, 6 minutes, and then we'll watch a little bit of a longer one, which is a very interesting conversation. This is a little bit, I don't know, it's kind of like at the end. Let's just watch.
Today we're joined by triple board certified neuropsychologist Dr. Judy Ho, talking about the Dark Triad personality styles.
Let's get
ready to rumble!
So Dark Triad is really interesting. It is a set of traits that are associated with individuals who, for example, commit crimes, who are escape or con artists, who eventually end up in the justice system one way or another. And a lot of our research is derived from individuals who eventually found their ways to jail or prisons. But over the years, we have found that these individuals are also found in what we call community populations. This means that they're not necessarily in the justice system in any way, but in the community, they're wreaking some havoc because of what they're doing. And I think that oftentimes people have all these questions about what the dark triad might actually even predict. Is it actually predictive of, for example, marital problems, inability to hold a job, and eventual venturing into crime? And there is some predictive power, but there are also some individuals who just continue to live among us and don't actually suffer any legal repercussions.
Is this the dark triad styles? Is this in the DSM anywhere, or is this just something we've come up with?
The dark triad is not in a DSM. It's thought to be personality traits or dimensions. So it's kind of like a type of personality theory, except it's talking about the most negative personality traits a person can have. So in contrast, there's also now what's been proposed as a light triad. It's this idea that, hey, what about these really positive traits that somebody can have that would be essentially the antithesis of a crime or criminal mentality. So really interesting, but the dark triad is the one that actually has the most research around it. Light triad is a very new concept. Dark triad is something that has been associated with everyone's fascination with psychopathy, what really makes a psychopath. And in fact, one of the three major personality dimensions of the dark triad is
Here, that's another trilogy, but though it's bedwetting, harming animals, and pyromania, which is generally it's in serial killers or people who maybe who get caught after what we know of committing one murder. They generally, those people, but like a murderer who looks like they may have had the propensity to kill again had they not been caught. It's that's the trilogy of bedwetting, harming animals, and pyromania, a fascination with fire. That's not to say that everybody who murders had those things in their past, in their early formative years. But yes, it's a similar idea. I have lots of theories about threes, and that certain groups of people perhaps that we've come in contact with lately, it's a three-pronged structure of that power dynamic.
is psychopathy.
So if one's psychopathy, what are the other two?
So psychopathy is actually thought to be the worst trait in the dark triad because it speaks to that lack of empathy a person has, almost a lack of morality in a lot of cases, where they just don't feel sorry for the times when they've hurt other people or stepped on others to get ahead. And essentially a human life is not of that much significance to them unless it's their own. The other two traits are Machiavellianism and narcissism. So narcissism, we talk about quite often. Narcissism is this idea of grandiose self-importance. The person oftentimes gets really angry if they don't get that special attention they believe they deserve. And there is some overlap with psychopathy because a person who is narcissistic can also be not very empathetic. And they'll do anything essentially to get ahead as long as they're the ones being rewarded in the end. Machiavellianism is a really interesting one. This is this idea that the person is cunning, they're manipulative, and they deceive people for a purpose. They deceive people, one, to get at some kind of monetary or tangible gain, or two, they deceive people because it's pleasurable to them. It makes them feel like they're better than other people. And for these reasons, it's really thought to be a interesting trait that's also sometimes linked to intellectual ability. A lot of individuals who have this type of trait are also very smart, and they think of different ways to outsmart other people, con other people out of things that they really value. So the interesting thing with the dark triad is there's a bit of overlap, as you can see, with all three traits. You can kind of see that when we talk about psychopathy and narcissism and Machiavellianism, there's something that kind of spills over to all three, but then each of them also have their distinct traits. And this actually led to a lot of controversy too, because some researchers and clinicians are saying, well, isn't this just one big trait then? But I think there's enough evidence that these three are different but related constructs. And I think other researchers and clinicians are saying, well, they're three interrelated constructs, and together they might form a personality style that could eventually be its own personality disorder diagnosis in a future DSM.
Wow. And to be clear, when we say psychopathy, are we referring to antisocial personality disorder?
So psychopathy is actually a type of trait, whereas antisocial personality disorder is a diagnosis in the DSM. So psychopathy is not a trait. Psychopathy is not a disorder that can be diagnosed, but it is thought to be the closest representation when we talk about things colloquially to the diagnosable antisocial personality disorder. And that's because psychopathy speaks to things like lack of empathy and this idea that a human life is really not that worthwhile unless it's their own. And those types of ideas are covered in the antisocial personality disorder diagnosis.
Dr. Judy, what do you think are some of the bigger misconceptions around these dark triad personality styles?
I think some of the misconceptions around these dark triad personality styles is that oftentimes people think that it means that they're definitely destined for a life of crime. And that's just not the case. There's a lot of individuals who have these dark triad personality traits, and actually they continue to function in society. They might wreak havoc in other ways and may make it difficult for you to have a relationship with them or to work with them, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to commit crimes, and certainly not necessarily crimes of a violent nature.
Yeah. Well, this has certainly caught a lot of people's attention, so I'm glad we'll be covering it here on Med Circle. And thank you for your time today, Dr. Judy.
Thank you, Kyle.
Remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.
Oh, well, nothing like a little bit of toxic positivity to no, that wasn't really. So that gives us a little bit of foundation. I just wanted to say last night there was a couple of people, because I watched the whole thing back because I'm a fucking weirdo, just to check my levels and just to I don't know. I just do to see how funny I am, because obviously no. And there was a few people that I know I didn't really acknowledge, and I'm so sorry for that. I know that GP Dog Drool. Hey, that's not okay. I'm being professional. GP Dog Drool, I don't think I ever properly acknowledged you and read out any of your comments. I was putting as many comments as I could up on the stream. I think also Crystal, I didn't, Crystal Des, I didn't probably acknowledge you either. So I'm so sorry. I never would want anyone to feel you're really tough, except you're not. Basta. So make sure if you do ever feel like that I maybe have been overlooking you, please let me know, because I would hate for anyone to feel like they weren't being included. So that's I'm always trying to be professional. Yes. Yes. See, hi GP Drool. Oh, but GP Dog Drool. I can't be responsible for the enunciation of words sometimes, like most of the time. Okay, so it's still 69. We're just holding 69. It's a good number to hold. Chat is Bay Amber. Absolutely. Love the doggies. I love the doggies too. Bloody idiots. Okay. So let's watch this next one. It's a little bit longer. It's just a great conversation. I think Taryn happened to come across, went down a little bit of a rabbit hole, a dark triad rabbit hole last night. Couldn't get enough of the old talking about narcissists and narcissism, so she went deeper. Which one is it though? It's this one. It is. Yes, it is. Why?
No.
Oh my goodness. This is because I'm a professional. Also, we'll be drawing the raffle. Let me see. How long is this? Wait. So this is an hour long. Oh my God. Just like, let's go back to the start. You know, I really am not good at the whole live streaming thing. How do we do this though? Why? I swear I queued it up. Motherfucker. Okay. So the Dark Triad, and this is where I got the title for this this live stream, dealing with narcissists, sociopaths, and other toxic people. So yeah. We've all dealt with toxic people. If you're on the Twitters, you will have absolutely. Oh, by the way, from last night, I dropped the links to all 3 of the videos that we watched last night, and also the Dr. Ramani, who is the channel name of the content that we watched. So if you're interested and you want to watch them, it's in the description box now. So let's get going.
Involving what are known as the Dark Triad of personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and sociopathy. These traits can lurk beneath
It's
the
70
surface,
now.
hidden
Sorry,
beneath
guys.
a facade of charisma and likability. But as time goes on, a person's true nature inevitably emerges, revealing patterns of manipulation, a lack of empathy, and a relentless focus on their own needs. We'll be exploring some of the key features of these personality traits, the signs to look out for, and the strategies you can use to protect yourself and manage these challenging relationships. So to help me do that, I'm joined today by
So that's a good point. This is not for diagnosing. Remember, we are learning about these things so we can be better equipped to identify some of these behaviors. So remember, this is about a cluster of behaviors and personality traits as opposed to a DSM-5 diagnosable disorder or condition. So this is what it is. Knowledge is power. And when we can recognize and identify certain types of people, we can better steer clear of them, or if we can't steer clear of them, better protect ourselves or navigate through the relationship with those people.
clinical psychologist, Dr. Rick Hansen. So Dad, how are you doing?
I'm good, and I'm very interested in this topic.
Yeah, same. I was really looking forward to this one. As a quick note before we start, we're focusing today on what I'll call subclinical presentations of these personality traits. And that's kind of a technical way of saying fairly mild, everyday forms of them. These are people who tend towards egocentrism. Maybe they aren't very empathic, or they have kind of a loose relationship with the truth and with different kinds of moral standards. And part of the reason that we're doing that is because extreme cases of these things are really quite rare. While it's become common to be pretty casual about referring to somebody as a narcissist or a sociopath, the research suggests that true NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, is present in maybe like 1 or 2% of the population at any given time. It's kind of the same for antisocial personality disorder. That's the heading that things like sociopathy get placed under. And as we were prepping for this conversation, Dad, you even said that in your, very long life, because you're pretty old, over that long period of time, so long, so much life, so old, you have met really very few people that you would slot as having the kind of full on, or even the 50% version of what we're talking about today. So that's part of the reason that we're broadening it out here.
That's right. I would say I've had a lot of clients who have definitely had someone who essentially fit the package. As a relative, sometimes a parent, tragically, certainly sometimes as a coworker, sometimes as a neighbor, and often as a friend. Someone who started out and they seemed so nice, and yet over time, it got stickier and weirder and weirder. And so I definitely have a fair amount of experience helping people deal with folks like that. But I just want to say that, and I don't mean this as a slam, I just mean this as a statistical observation. I think there's certain occupations that tend to have a higher density of people of this sort than, say, people who want to become a psychotherapist.
Yeah.
Although there was Hannibal Lecter. We should not forget him.
Hi, Mandy. Good to see you. We
So
haven't
part
joined
of
the
what we're
Raffle
going to be
yet.
talking about today is exactly what you said. What do you do when
Yeah.
your boss has these traits, or your parent has these traits, or your friend has these traits? Or, hey, there's somebody you really like, you're very into, and you've got a pretty good relationship with them, but you get to the 9-month mark and things are going okay, but some of these traits are starting to appear. They might not be bad enough that they're totally disqualifying, but you're aware that maybe there's a little bit of this personality structure going on. So we keep on saying these traits, Dad. What are we talking about when we say these traits?
What you're talking about, and what this seminal paper from Delroy, Paulhus, and Kevin Williams in 2002 talked about, is this combination of being narcissistic.
Everyone loves Cox. Hey, Jim Cox. Good to see you. Sorry, couldn't help myself.
Which is to say, very self-referential.
Dizzy's in the house.
And
Dizzy.
often oriented around kind of
Hi,
grandiose,
good to see you.
self-aggrandizing, and a very prickly sensitivity to feeling devalued.
Motherfucker.
Combined with
my grifting game. I've got to lift it. Butter last night got me a full copyright strike. No income on that one, which is okay. It might have been $10 at most. I haven't monetized 2 of my the 2 reconciliation videos I've done uploaded in the live with Tiff last night, and also my conversation with Jimmy, Auntie Deb, the other night. And the revenue I would have gotten on the one with Auntie Deb, which has had over 5,000 views, is $6. So, you know, sometimes integrity is more important. But yeah, full copyright strike. Not a just means no monetized. They'll have that whoever made that butter song, great, gets my $6.73.
Machiavellian, quote unquote, tendencies to be manipulative, which I mean specifically not trying to influence people in open and direct ways, but rather being deceptive. Sometimes by pitting other people against each other and then kind of sitting back and, you know, watching them fight it out. And then the third quality, sociopathy, a fundamental indifference to the suffering of others, a very, very transactional, kind of low level of moral reasoning, that combination. There are people throughout history that have fit the total package. Caligula, probably going all the way back to Rome.
Nero,
and maybe,
sure. Yeah.
Maybe some more recent characters too. And what we're going to explore here is the ways in which these qualities can be present in challenging people in our life, including, I want to emphasize, when they're under pressure. In other words, when people are getting what they want and it's all going fine, you know, they don't always show their true colors. But when they're under pressure, like when you bring your own need to them, or you complain about something to them, or you call them out on some kind of lie, or playing fast and loose with the truth, you bring a moral dimension to them. Whoa, then the mask falls away and the beast is revealed.
So another phrase that we might use here are just antisocial traits. At the clinical level, again, mostly what we're not talking about today, antisocial personality disorder, this is abbreviated ASPD, sometimes APD, but normally ASPD, is characterized by a limited capacity for empathy, a pattern of disregard for the wants or rights of others, impulsivity, recklessness, and a general lack of remorse. In maybe more plain language, these are people who tend to be...
You're right, Dizzy. I thought maybe they might be over ears, those ones that have those hooks, but they do look like proper iPhone earbuds. What are they called? AirPods? Is that what they're called? Upside down, but they could have the little hooks. The things we notice, huh? Because the dad has proper in-ears. They're not, they're proper in-ears, but you're supposed to put that thing behind you, Dad.
To be motivated by self-interest, and they're generally willing to use other people as means to their own ends when necessary. They tend to prioritize themselves. They often have a lack of empathy, so limited ability to empathize with other people's emotions. They tend to be at least somewhat manipulative, whether it's through charm and deceit, or even just more like strategic planning. And then they often have sort of what I'll call a flexible relationship with the truth. They're open to lying if it serves them.
Thank you.
They might chronically misremember things that happened in the past. You might notice yourself getting into a lot of almost technical feeling debates with them about a...
Sorry, going to pause for a second. No, not a full copyright strike. I've only got one of those so far. It was that fateful night where I decided to... push the envelope and restream the Night of the Nor'easter, the Dateline special about the Karen Reid and Officer John O'Keefe story. And we got a warning. And I was like, yeah, nah, fuck it. Let's just do it. Full copyright strike. So I've got 2 more. Joseph, thank you so much, sir. Ginger says, here, you butter off YouTube. And of course I've got to play this one. Wait, it's not on loop. Good. This.
I'll take any motherfucker's money if he giving it away. Shit.
Okay, let me go back a little bit. Dirty pause. Sorry, son. We'll draw the raffle in like, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
They often have sort of what I'll call a flexible relationship with the truth. They're open to lying if it serves them. They might chronically misremember things that happened in the past. You might notice yourself getting into a lot of almost technical feeling debates with them about a word that was used, what that word really meant, what it didn't mean. All of that kind of stuff might come forward here.
Yes, it might. Or, for example, the person might be absolutely adamant that you're making threats to kill with a hilarious cover art for a song that has nothing to do with them. That kind of debate.
So now I've got a question for you here. These tendencies that I've just listed are not very likable to be around by and large. They're mostly punished socially. People don't really want to be around manipulative or more antagonistic people. So how do they get away with that? Like, how does this work? You know, if they're just kind of unpleasant, then why would we find ourselves in relationship with these people? And why would they be in positions of power even?
Ooh,
Ooh.
I take it back myself to
Hi, Britt. Good to see you.
sociobiology. And that's a fraught phrase. Think about our evolution in hominin bands, and then early humans, and then Stone Age humans. Long period of time in which there was a lot of evolutionary selection on people who could cooperate
It is, Mandy.
inside the band and be compassionate inside the band and willing to be regulated by the will of the band as a whole, which could then regulate the few. While at the same time, it was really important in the human genome to have people who could be very callous and cruel and aggressive and indifferent toward those outside the band. That combination, the wolf of love and the wolf of hate, if you will, still lives within the human heart. And it's distributed. These tendencies and qualities are distributed in the population in terms of their genetic basis. Then you take people who, let's say, were born as the wolf of love genetically, and yet grew up in environments that were really, really punishing, even abusive, chaotic, and which it just made sense to be looking out for number one from the day, you could figure anything out for yourself. So there are different reasons why people become who they are. And then we have, I think the title of the book was The Sociopath Next Door. There are people who will write memoirs and they'll say, honestly, it's never been inside me to care about anybody but myself. I've had to learn to operate pragmatically in a transactional way so that I give in order to get. But the truth is, I really don't give a damn about you. And as long as you understand that, we can be neighbors and share a fence and let our kids play with each other.
So many people that we come across in life, right? That, sorry, Dad, dirty pause. That we realize it's easiest to just do the transactions with them. There's no satisfaction or reward or sense of well-being or fulfillment in those relationships, that you just go along to get along so that you don't have to have any conflict with these people.
So,
because Lord knows, if you want to incense the wrath of someone who has this dark triad personality cluster, yikes.
Statistically.
One more thing, sorry. But then there is that light triad cluster. And, wait till we get to it. I think it's in the next video. I don't think it's in this one. Needless to say, my own gaslighting of myself and whether maybe I'm a bad guy after all has been completely debunked with this light triad theory.
There's probably actually a fair amount of, if you will, predisposition, certainly toward basic forms of sociopathy in the general population. So why are there these people? Well, because there are a lot of them. And that goes to the importance of having systems in our modern collective societies that serve the functions that occurred in our small hunter-gatherer bands that regulate the wolf of hate, tap into its passion and power as needed, but in general, keep it within bounds. So then the question becomes, how do we create those kind of systems in society as a whole? And then how do we...
James, I don't want to make you blush, but your new profile picture is fire. Very nice on Facebook. Sir, looking good.
Create them in our friend groups, in our companies, in our family systems, and so forth.
I think that's a great explanation, Dad, of how these tendencies are present in people, almost from kind of an evolutionary perspective. Like, if these traits had a lot of costs associated with them, well, why didn't they just evolve out of us? And the answer to that question always is, well, either they came with more benefits than you realized, or they weren't costly enough to be selected out. Either of those is a plausible explanation with what we're talking about today. Pragmatically, in terms of how any one person can keep on moving socially, how they can be the sociopath next door without anyone really realizing it, is that these traits are often very well disguised in people.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're disguised consciously, sometimes they're disguised unconsciously. It's not like inside of themselves they have a lot of buy-in to being cruel or manipulative or whatever. It's just more of kind of an unconscious personality structure. They just fall into being really egocentric or sort of disinterested in the needs of other people. But generally, these people learn how to play the social game quite well and can be quite charismatic in order to mask these kinds of traits that are often very socially costly.
Yeah.
Now, an important thing to remember is that not every charismatic person is antisocial, and not every antisocial is charismatic. But if it's immediately easy for everybody to recognize that a person has these more antisocial traits, ironically, their capacity to do harm is pretty limited. So the people actually to look out for are the ones where these traits are a little bit more skillfully concealed.
Yes,
That's a really interesting
it is.
counterintuitive observation.
Yeah.
It is.
To kind of build on your point, so there's nature and nurture. Okay. Whatever is true about, the genetically rooted range of prosocial, compassionate, caring orientations versus, let's say, at the other end of the spectrum, low natural empathy, kind of indifference to others. Okay, whatever is true about that, then life happens to do. And one of the factors of life we
Life
haven't
does
yet
happen.
named is privilege. People kind of become this way because they could get away with it. Think about,
No, for sure.
think about those good-looking, athletic, popular kids in high school who could get away with a lot of stuff because they.
And it becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like if people are constantly fluffing you
Yeah.
for being good looking and athletic and whatever, it's easy to internalize.
Sir, careful when you say fluffing on my channel. Goodness me, it's not that kind of channel. They have got great hair, this father and son duo, don't they? Shelby's here. Chat, shall we draw the raffle chat? Shall we? Wait, let me just stop. We'll come back to this because I can't think about anything else at the moment. I mean, I can, but a little bit not. Hang on. Oh my God, what have I just done? Exactly what I meant to do. Yikes. Bork. Yes, all the raffle. Vegemite for the win. Okay, so hang on. Let me just get. So there's a pair of these. Oh my God, I can't see anything. Even with the glasses on. Fuck. So these are mine, but there's a pair of these that so cute. Ugh, lol. The hoodwinking, the catfishing. A pair of these sunnies. Yes. It's too late if you didn't get in the raffle. Suck it next time. I'm joking, but it's exciting. You all who are in the raffle know, right? But I'll show you anyway because it's still exciting. Hold on. Oh, there's a giant jar of Vegemite because obviously you can never have too much flavored yeast extract. It's fucking delicious. I had it in my toast every morning. So, hang on. Oh my God. Wait. Oh. So, this Darrell is a very good, very delicious chocolate. Excuse me, vapes, good for you. A Rocky Road, like Rocky Road, Darrell chocolate bullets. Excuse me. Some raspberry licorice twists with white chocolate, and Darrell licorice is very good. If you don't like licorice, well, that's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Tim Tams. I'm going to buy another lot of Tim Tams as well to go in there. Mint slice. Might even put some caramel crowns in there. Maltesers. So for those people out there who are suggesting that from my side at least, this wasn't a genuine thing, it was. I ate the other one. There was two of these. I ate the other one. I don't really like chocolate, so wasn't that good. I was having a day. You might remember I've had a few days. Randomly, I've never tried this, but looked kind of cute. A Christmas chocolate pudding. Because I'm cute. A Santa Pez. I know you guys know Pez. And then these are the sunnies. Exactly the same. Oops. All boxed up. They come in a nice box with the little inspirational card. Anyway, that. So, who's in the drawer? All the people, all the names. This, right? Do I have a drum roll? No. Shit, not a professional. Can't see anything. Oh my God, I got to put my glasses on. Forgot. Pez is the best, says James. Yes. Does anyone... Dairy Milk is Bay. Vixie plays yes. Pez is best. Okay. Make the dogs pick. It will arrive melted as fuck. I don't think so. We put stabilizers in our chocolates in our chocolate in Australia because it gets so hot here. So Sticky's doing the drum roll. Beautiful. Okay. Anyone place bets? Buster's looking at me like I'm a crazy person. They're like, "What are you doing, Mama?" Okay, drum roll. Anyone? I'm going to pull it out. I've got one. It says Stephanie Blah-de Blah. That's you, Steph. Congratulations. You win. You win the Vegemite. Steph wanted sample packs of Vegemite. Steph gets all the Vegemite. Is Steph here at the moment? Steph, we must have known. I was crying to you last night. Congratulations, Steph. Yes, Steph. Oh my God. You know what? I'll do one. Maybe I'll do one like every month. How about that? We'll do one every month. I'll buy a bunch of stuff. You can tell me what you want from Australia in there. Yes. Congratulations, Steph. Not even rigged. Just one of those things. Steph. We could even have matching cool sunnies, Steph. I like that way better than having them with a pedo pirate matching sunnies. Yuck. This is a way better. Poppy, you don't get to have the sunnies. You're too much of a dog for sunnies. What? You don't have what? She's very excited. Well, shit. Congratulations, Steph. Yes, and that was definitely not a wheel gate. No. Good show, Shorty. Thanks, man. Congratulations, Steph. You manifested that. You've been saying, I just want sample packs of Vegemite. You don't need sample packs. Here, have this giant jar. It'll last you forever. Bussy, do you like Vegemite? He says, yeah, it'll be delicious. He does. Puppies do love. There you go. Yes, you're welcome, Steph. We'll do one every month. I'll buy a bunch of things. Not the sunnies probably every time, but a bunch of food things. How about that? Australian stuff or whatever. You guys can vote on things you want to go in there. Poppy thought it was a treat. Poppy thinks everything's a treat. Yes. I have that big jar. Same. Aldi. I get it from Aldi. It doesn't last me very long. Busty, you can have the chocolate. Dogs can't have chocolate. No. Okay. I did manifest it. Manifestation works, man. Manifestation works. Okay, let's go back to the father and son. The excitement. I love it. Beautiful. I don't know where I'll be able to get in touch with you, Steph, but probably in the Discord because all we all do is talk all day and all night to each other in the Discord. So koalas and Vegemite next month. Yes. Oh my God, I almost banned you, Amber. Jesus, fuck. Yes. I'll just every month we'll do a fun raffle because it is fun. Everyone likes to win something. Oh, and Steph, you get a couple of the free Karen Reed stickers, and I'll write you a special a love letter. You can save it for when we're as big as EDB. You'll have and you get a couple of these. Yeah, if you'd like one of these, all you need to do is make a donation to the Karen Reed's Defense Fund. $10 or more will get you one. If you donate $50 or more, two. $100 or more get you three. This is just a sidebar. And just screenshot your receipt and email it to me or DM me, and we'll get one posted out to you. Patricia Vincent and I finally got ourselves sorted with her address, so that's going out. Yes. Jim Cox signed me up. What? Sign me up for what? For some cocks? Prince lover. Man. Stephanie should get on a stream with you when she gets them and show the reaction to Vegemite live on the stream. That's a great idea. Jim, I love it. I love it. Love it. Buster and Poppy. Chlamydia and chocolate. I won't say any chlamydia. I don't know. There's no koalas around near me. Sign me up. I'm a violet crumble loving American. Yes, violet crumbles are good. I actually prefer the crunchy over the violet crumble, but that's, horses for courses. Here you go. Donate to Karen's Defense Fund here. By the way, tomorrow night we're going to start with the pre-trial motions hearings from a year ago. So tomorrow night, Saturday night, I think we're starting at 6 Eastern, is back to Karen Reid. But let's go back to the darkness that is bad people that we may well have come in contact with in recent weeks, even via the tubes and the Twitters. I love that for us. Here it is, this one. Okay, back to the men. The men. Press play. Oh, look at how beautiful they are. There's no dirty paws there. Look at them. Adorable. They've got the best hair. They've got the earbuds in upside down, and they're killing it.
Internalize those narcissistic supplies, sometimes in less healthy. A little bit of a
named is privilege. People kind of become this way because they could get away with it. Think about
no, for sure.
Yeah, think about that. Those good-looking, athletic, popular kids in high school who could get away with a lot of stuff because it
becomes a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like if people are constantly fluffing you for being good-looking and athletic and whatever, it's easy to internalize those narcissistic supplies, sometimes in less healthy ways.
Yeah, and then throw in wealth. There's a lot of research that shows, just sadly, that
a violet crumble is a honeycomb in a rectangular log of honeycomb coated in milk chocolate. Crunchy is the same thing. Crunchy has a bit more air inside the honeycomb, so it's a bit more gooey. Violet crumbles are it's more dense, so they're more, oddly enough, more crunchy. They're more like they shatter, whereas the crunchy kind of crumbles doesn't seem like it makes sense. I collect little spoons. I do not have one from Australia. Oh, well, let me see if I can find you one, and I'll send you one, Catherine. Next time I'm that doesn't happen often. When I go, because I'll go to the shop, I'll go to a place that sells Australiana, because I think Steph definitely wants a chlamydia koala. You can call it clammy. And I will get you a spoon, okay? And I'll talk to you offline, and I'll get your address. Absolutely. I'd love to help you with your collection. Collections are life. Goodness me. That's cool. Remind me. Someone remind me. God. Friends, remind me.
As a broad observation with many individual exceptions, but as a tendency,
here's my list, by the way.
Wealth increases, compassion for particularly those outside the group decreases over time. One of my favorites is some studies from Dr. Keltner, for example, UC Berkeley and his team there. Some grad student did this thing where basically they stood at a crosswalk in a urban setting. And
I remember this, yeah.
And then they started, and deliberately in a way that was quite controlled and videotaped and so forth, they would, as a car was approaching, they would step onto the crosswalk, and then they would see if the car would stop. And in California law, if someone's on a crosswalk, you're supposed to stop. And then they would track which kind of cars would slow down and stop versus which kind of cars would speed up and race through the intersection. And there was a high statistical correlation between the expensiveness of the car and the degree to which he would just race through the intersection.
Yeah, those stereotypes about BMW drivers, man, they're coming in hot here.
Yeah, and there are other examples.
Sure. Yes.
So I think
many other examples.
We could throw that
I didn't
into
sorry, BMW drivers out there. My bad. This is just
car.
like a car forum
nice
thing.
Car.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, good. Anyway, so that's something to think about as well.
My peace lilies, Shelby. I have 3 flowering at the moment. Wait. Of course, we stay on topic always. Wait, hang on. Let me just get wait. I got so many plants. It's all tangled up. Look at this one. Can you see all the flowers? I don't know. I think it's because my life is thriving, honestly. This one is a variegated leaf, spathiphyllum. It's got, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see the variegated leaves there. And then, yeah, flowering. The one that's behind me to the other side, my mother gave me for my 40th birthday. I think she thought I'd probably kill it. Suck it. It didn't flower for 10 years, but it flowered this year, right? Professional. Okay. Sorry, Dad. We're back to it.
As well. And, it's a bit of a corrective for those of us like me who've been privileged in various ways societally, right? White, male, straight, middle class, professional now, and so forth.
Hi, Michelle.
To take into account any of the little ways that we ourselves have been able to get away with some stuff.
Easy to fall into.
Yeah. And to slide into a certain amount of manipulation and
Hi, Unicorn. Yes, we've just we're about 15 minutes in to this very interesting father-son duo, clinical psychologists, talking about it. We've got still quite some to go through.
using other people and, kind of moving through life, not having to pay much attention to the wreckage we leave behind us.
Yeah. Just to summarize what you're saying here, Dad, as you move up the social ladder, you don't need to care as much about a lot of these things because you acquire status that shields you from the social consequences of having these behaviors. So it's natural for them to track each other. It's deeply unfortunate that this results in people in powerful positions often being less and less concerned with the circumstances or the lives of the people who are underneath them. But it is a very well documented thing that we're talking about here. And because these traits are concealed and the concealment of them is so important in order to kind of keep the racket going, the maintenance of this act tends to be very important to people who have it, particularly if they're conscious about it. More unconscious, lower end of the spectrum behaviors, this might not be so much of a thing. But if a person really does kind of know that they're in on the joke about these things that they're doing or the way that their personality is structured, maintaining that facade, very, very high stakes. So they tend to be very reactive to criticism. And if they feel like called out about these behaviors, they'll often react extremely strongly to that.
I'm thinking of Ta-Nehisi Coates' beautiful definition of privilege as not having to take something into account. Not having to take it into account. And when I think about my own brushes up against the kind of people we're talking about here, or that were reported to me, part of what happens is that initially it seems okay. It's not like you get some really bad vibe and you don't have anything to do with them. What's the thing, in the horror?
Wait, I just realized watching my stream back last night also that every time I do this, it makes a clicking noise. And I don't think this does. So I'm going to try to stay away from that button there, even though it's cool. Thank you, Amber, for putting on these. I'll be flashing on numbers and websites across the screen as we go through this evening, like last night. So if you do need help with someone to talk to, these are the numbers in various countries around the world, around Australia. But he's talking about, right? Sorry, Dad, dirty paws. He still looks gorgeous. Talking about how these people, the Dark Triad people, don't necessarily always give us a super bad vibe to begin with. Let me go back to the start of this little section. There's a timestamp there. It's probably there for a reason. So usually these character traits, whether it's this Dark Triad, this cluster of narcissism, psychopathy, and Machiavellianism, usually they're not apparent to us straight away. People like this are able to hold a mask, usually, for quite some time. But when that mask starts to slip, boy, do we notice it if we're in any way switched on and aware. And what we're learning here, this educational stuff, will help us better recognize these things as the mask starts to slip.
Maintenance of this act tends to be very important to people who have it, particularly if they're conscious about it. More unconscious, lower end of the spectrum behaviors, this might not be so much of a thing. But if a person really does
Zach.
kind of
You're
know
an
that
idiot,
they're in
Zach.
on the joke about these things that they're doing or the way that their personality is structured, maintaining that facade, very, very high stakes. So they tend to be very reactive to criticism. And if they feel like called out about these behaviors, they'll often react extremely strongly to that.
I'm thinking of Ta-Nehisi Coates' beautiful
Stop,
definition
excuse
of
me.
privilege
Wait,
as
one more time. Listen, pay attention. I believe he just said, when they get called out, they react extremely strongly to that.
That they're doing or the way that their personality is structured. Maintaining that facade, very, very high stakes. So they tend to be very reactive to criticism. And if they feel like called out about these behaviors, they'll often react extremely strongly to that.
I'm thinking of Ta-Nehisi Coates' beautiful definition of privilege as not having to take something into account.
Yep.
Not having to take it into account. And when I think about my own brushes up against the kind of people we're talking about here, or that were reported to me, part of what happens is that initially it seems okay. It's not like you get some really bad vibe and you don't have anything to do with them. What's the thing, in the horror films, the monsters in the building, right? That's this kind of scary
The calls
thing.
coming from inside the house.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of thing. Yeah, totally.
Right. So suddenly now you realize, whoa, I'm on a work project with this person who's willing to just throw me under the bus and claim credit for my stuff, or that's my boss, or that's my.
Sorry, sidebar. Taryn, I pictured you being shorter, like me. But then maybe not, knowing what I know about you and your background and your story. Me, I'm 5'2" and a bit. I know Heather Taylor's 4'11". Drop your height in the chat in inches, chat, or inches and centimeters if you know.
Father-in-law, former friend talking about me now on social media, whatever. And the indicator, the first warning often comes where there's this startling recognition of their
I'll send you some, Shelby.
indifference to, or in other words, not taking into account something really important, like a basic norm of truth-telling and acceptance of personal responsibility, or not taking into account their impact on other people, including yourself. It's like you're startled. You didn't see it coming. It's like, what? And that's often the first indicator. And it boils down to, across all these, that not taking into account, because they don't feel they have to take into account. They don't want to take it into account, because if they had to take it into account, they'd have to change their course accordingly.
To me, a big hallmark of this is a tendency of viewing other people as means to their ends rather than ends in and of themselves.
Yes.
And something to kind of keep in mind, particularly with people on the more narcissistic traits side of the spectrum, is that the
Pocket
end
size
that they
mellow.
could be after could well be having a friend. What this means to them is somebody who supports them, says nice things about them, is a resource that they can tap when needed, those kinds of things, right? The ends that they're looking for are not inherently evil or even problematic in the right circumstances. And they might also be things that we all, to some extent, get out of friendship. But the fundamental motivation is not really about building this like deep, empathic, connected relationship with you. It's building a relationship with you that can then be a thing that they get stuff from.
Okay, so let's
And
listen
that
to
kind
that
of
again,
framework is something to be very attentive.
Chat.
Yeah.
So pay attention to this, because these people, remember they were talking before about transactional interactions with people, and now they're talking about building. These dark triad folks tend to build relationships with people that actually aren't a friendship. They're to get something out of those people, right? So listen to this.
Those kinds of things, right? The ends that they're looking for are not inherently evil or even problematic in the right circumstances. And they might also be things that we all, to some extent, get out of friendship. But the fundamental motivation is not really about building this like deep, empathic, connected relationship with you. It's building a relationship with you that can then be a thing that they get stuff from. And that kind of framework is something to be very attentive to, I think.
Very
Yeah,
attentive
that's right.
to.
I think another piece of it here,
You're an idiot, Zach.
that's implicit in what you said, is inequity in the flow of attention or contribution or interest. These are people who love it when you're interested in them, but they don't really ask you very many questions about yourself. Or
Sure.
if they do,
You can see
ask
them
you-
kind of zone out. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can think of the classic kind of Hollywood line, the two people getting together and one person rattles on for a while and says, "Hey, enough about me. Let's talk about you. What did you think of my screenplay?" You know what I mean? Right? Like that's a clue right there. Or you
Yeah.
realize that you're with them, and when you get together, 80% of the airtime is taken up with them talking
Bite or
about
stab,
this
Amber.
or this or
Bite or
that,
stab.
and you get around 20%. Another indicator is that when you push in normal ways for some kind of repair or resetting or readjusting, you don't mind, for example, you don't mind a lunch or two in which it was mostly about them, but by the third time you get together for lunch, getting to know each other, you want to, focus more on what's going on with you, and they really resist that at a kind of a minor level, of course. That's another indicator as well. Resistance to changing the kind of the script
You're an idiot,
in which
Zach.
they want to operate.
That's a huge part of it, Dad. And maybe a little subset of that. Phrases like, if you're really my friend, then fill in the blank. Or, oh, if you really love me, then fill in the blank. These kinds of manipulative, controlling phrases where they start using the relationship as a tool to get something from it.
That's right.
Laura, you can be the shorty mascot, and I mean that with the greatest of respect. I should remember. So you're what, like 4'11"? I think if Heather Taylor was here, she might. You guys can be like my 20 shorty mascots. How about that? We'll do that.
Right.
Right.
There's a
You said
place. I'm personally pretty against relationship testing as a general statement, but there's maybe a place in our relationships from time to time for making a clear communication of, hey, this really matters to me, and it's really important to me that you do this thing because that would just be really meaningful to me.
Yeah.
You can do that, but it's a style of communication. It's a very different tone. It's about the frequency of it, and it's about, I think, the attempt to control behavior.
You're talking here about who gets to put claims on who.
Yes. And
Yep.
is that reciprocal? Yeah,
Yep.
totally.
Exactly right. And if they get to put claims on you, sometimes communicated from their neediness, but you don't get to put claims on them. Guilt tripping is one of the maneuvers you sometimes find here, right? The use of reproach or grievance, endless grievance. That's another.
Endless grievance. One more time. Endless grievance.
Is one of the maneuvers you sometimes find here, right? The use of reproach or grievance, endless grievance. That's another indicator, because it's a very powerful card to play in relationships. Just to be aggrieved all the time, to come from, you did me wrong, you did me dirt, I was cheated, I was mistreated. That's another indicator here, I think, of the kind of people we're talking about.
Great. I think that those are some good examples in more of a everyday kind of common sense way of approaching it. And we're about to get into the what to do part of the conversation, which I think is probably what most people are interested in. But before we get there, I did want to talk about some almost like ethical considerations here that you can have when approaching this stuff. Something we talked about recently in a mailbag that we did is the
Mailbag, ball bag, same. Hey, Zach. Do they do this with everyone or just one or some relationships? Good question. I think that maybe it's a general style of communication and relationship dynamic. I think that it's a go-to, it's a default setting, but perhaps they will ask this question and answer it. We'll see. They're very good.
is the massive amount of scope creep that has taken place
Scope
in the
creep.
last 5 to 10 years as mental health topics and psychology-driven topics have become more popular on social media, places like TikTok, podcasts like this one. And people have gotten very casual about referring to other people as being narcissistic or borderline or whatever else because they saw a TikTok video about it and now they're an expert. There are real consequences to labeling somebody as having these traits. including just inside of our own mind. Like these are, again, very socially negatively loaded traits. You're in a group of friends, you refer to somebody as a narcissist, everybody pays attention.
Yeah.
And everybody is now thinking about that in every interaction they have with that person for the foreseeable future. That's a lot of tone. We should be a little careful about that, right? So there, I think, are some big considerations here. First of all, it's important to keep in mind that there's kind of a difference between not liking somebody or even them being sort of rude to us from time to time and them being either a narcissist or a sociopath.
Like Amber said yesterday or last night, and I think I said at the start of the stream, some people are just assholes. They're not narcissists. They're just pieces of shit people. There's a lot of them on Twitter, right? But so there's some clear distinctions, which they will go further in depth about.
That's the stuff that occurs to me off the top, Dad. I'm wondering if you've thought about this at all.
I'm so glad you brought that up. And I think it's really important that we don't use, this new language and understanding as a kind of bludgeon to, for example, undermine the appropriate powerfulness of some people, including people who are finally speaking up about ways they've been mistreated, whether kind of locally in a family situation or more broadly due to cultural factors, social factors, systemic factors. I think that's really true. It's also true that what we're really talking about here is a subclinical personality disorder in the sense that these are fairly, as you said earlier, traits, innate, but particularly acquired traits that persist across settings, across times, and across relationships. That's what we're really talking about here.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I extremely appreciate your nuance as usual. And then I wanted to throw in an angle if I could. I realized that
please.
It's almost as if there are sort of two sort of types of people in this triad. One, I think of as fairly conspicuous, overt bullies, blowhards, Harvey Weinstein. We can get a sense of them as what they are. But okay, that type of person is fairly obvious. And a lot of people, as soon as they recognize it, they're like, I'm out of here. Then there's this really other type that I'm reflecting on where it starts out that this is your friend or your coworker who likes your help, who looks up to you, who admires you, starts feeding you social supplies. They understand the narcissistic supply process. And it all goes along really well. But at some point, if you try to reset the equilibrium in the relationship so it's more reciprocal and you're in it, maybe because you have a need that suddenly emerges. Maybe you suffer a tragic loss in your life and suddenly now it's you who, is putting claims on the other person. It's then that this underlying dynamic of Machiavellianism, narcissism, and sociopathy gets revealed.
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Kelly, for the coffees. That's really kind of you. Kelly's watching but not in chat so much. So thank you, Kelly. Thank you. I love coffee and I love Kelly. Kelly, thank you.
Kind of surges to the fore. And this particular type of situation, in my experience, is especially tricky because, as you say, it's disguised, right? Until the pressure's on and then it gets revealed.
Yeah, that second category is where you see people get into abusive relationships, or you see really intense fallout in family systems.
Yeah.
When it's sort of when the kids achieve a level of power where they're able to drop boundaries with a adult family member. That's often where it comes in, not always, but often, who has some of these traits, and that adult family member reacts extremely poorly to that process. Something else I want to mention here is that so much of this is about our lens, like the lens of relationship that we have with another person. Let's take a phrase.
Thank you, Steph.
I'd like to see you more often. What does that phrase mean to you? Is that a kind phrase? Is it displaying a lot of interest in the other person? Is it emotionally empathic? Is it engaged? Are they trying to control your behavior? Are they trying to influence you? Are they being manipulative? I don't know. It's just a phrase. It could be any of those things, right? So much of this is context dependent. And I think part of it is about appreciating how the way that something lands on us is often about us. It's not always about the other person. And that's another reason why it's appropriate to be a little bit sensitive, a little bit careful about attributing these kinds of particularly very intense diagnostic language onto other people. So let's say that you're in one of those relationships, Dad. You've recognized that this other person, your parent, your boss, your friend, your whatever, is, looks like a duck, walks like a duck, quacks like a duck. You can't just leave for whatever reason. Maybe you don't want to. Maybe you just can't. It has a job you need and you're kind of stuck with this boss. How would you start thinking about how you're going to act with that person?
Well, as we prepared for this and you did your usual, people don't probably realize this who just listen to the pod, but Forrest does an incredible amount of prep for each episode. And
thanks, Dad.
And it ends up in our
it.
notes and it's fantastic. You identified for us, I thought, some 4 major categories: awareness, boundary setting, thoughtful communication, and self-care. So maybe I could start with awareness. And it's, of course, really helpful to try to be forewarned about this kind of person, especially if, like me, you tend to see the best in people. Like many people, see the best in people, and have a kind of, in my case, I've had a kind of naive, childlike, innocent trustingness that's been taken advantage of. So if you have any tendencies along these lines, or ways in which maybe you grew up with this kind of a person as a step parent or an older sibling, or your first love of your life, if you have any tendencies to kind of fall into this script with that kind of person, especially be on the lookout for them. Point 2 about awareness, when you get the first indicator, pay attention to it. Sometimes that other person is they've just got a blinding headache. Something just happened in their life. Yeah, it didn't mean anything. But if they do it twice, right? Whatever it might be, of the kinds of things that you and I've talked about before, including just at a kind of a personal level, like seeming really startled at the various notion that there should be basic reciprocity in a friend relationship. And in that is sometimes a kind of disenchantment that you wake up from a sort of spell cast by this person. Sometimes what happens is it's initially shocking, like you can't believe it.
A spell.
You're so startled. I didn't see that coming. Other times, suddenly it's as if the dots start connecting together. And you realize, oh, okay, that's what I'm really dealing with here. So then you kind of get it. And then on the heels of that, to finish, there can be a real grieving. Like, darn, I'm so disappointed. I had a lot of hopes for this relationship. Because as you say, Forrest, for people to be able to get away with this package, they really have to have typically a lot going for them.
Yeah.
Like charm, bright, looks, juice, charisma, vibe, frankly, sexiness. Sometimes that matters too. All right. And there's going to be a loss there, disappointment, and also a sense of chagrin. Like, how could I have been so stupid? You start blaming yourself.
I wasted all of this time.
Yeah.
That's a big phrase I hear a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's really understandable. And keep in mind, this is about them. They took advantage of you. You came into this with an open heart, in good faith.
Yes.
Most likely it was your virtues, your sense of responsibility, your willingness to look at yourself as the culprit in different situations, your generosity of heart, your compassion for others. It was these positive qualities in you that made you accessible to and vulnerable to, this kind of mistreatment from that other person. So try to keep that in mind as well. And then move past to, okay, like it or not, this is what I'm dealing with here.
What are we doing?
Now, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Y'all
maybe
have had
more
gummies.
and I thought that was great, Dad. Maybe a little bit more in the now what am I going to do aspect of awareness. When I get to a place where I recognize that I have a friend, a coworker, or whatever, who has that more egocentric personality structure in particular, it is in my mind all the time when I'm interacting with them. Every single interaction I have with that person, this fact is floating around for me in the background.
Wait, let me wake you up.
It might not be operating at the very front of my forehead, but it's operating at the...
Let me wake you up. Hang on. I feel like this needs to be... Wait. I know what I'm doing. I swear one day I'm going to understand this whole YouTube-y thing. Let me wake you up. Too funny. I fucking love this.
Scorched earth flamethrower, DC all knower, Rage, tweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all. Logical fallacies prey on vulnerabilities, pillar of deception, no culture for redemption. False narratives driven hard, rotten to the core, the space is bad. Cultivate toxicity, mind gymnastics, elasticity, got them all laughing about the palm of your hand. Scorched earth, flamethrower, DC on no war. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all. Double down, that shame, rage cycle. Malignant, grandiose, perpetually prideful. Expected nothing less, it's interesting to see the disintegration of your sanity. Scorched earth, flamethrower, deceit, all knower. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all. Like wow, holy cow, delusions running wild. Like wow, holy cow, feeding your inner child. Scorched earth, flamethrower, deceit, all knower. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all. Double down, that shame, rage cycle. Malignant, grandiose, perpetually prideful. Expected nothing less, it's interesting to say the disintegration of your sanity. Scorched earth, flamethrower, deceit, all knower. Rage, sweet, dirty, delete, guilty of it all.
Yes, thank you, Amber, for reminding me about that. So the sound is a bit tinny because it's restreamed. It's not. If you listen to the song, the music directly, whether it's through my Suno profile or in my playlist, excuse me, the sound of all of the music is very fulsome. But when it restreams through into StreamYard, it comes up a bit tinny. So sorry about that. But if you would like to hear like all of the music, particularly like Shots Fired, is just so fulsome. That one is just so full of sound. So that thank you, Amber. Yes, they're big mad about that one. Remember what the father and son said before about being called out and how it makes them big mad? Big mad. Don't you dare say stuff about me. I'm perfect. Not so perfect, but okay. What are we watching? Oh God. Why? The Dark Triad. This one. Yes. No. That's a cute. Look how cute he is. Can't get a dirty paws on this boy.
At the back of my forehead. And that operation is then helping me make choices about the kinds of conversations I have with them, the kinds of topics I do and don't bring up. Topic control, I think, is a huge part of this. And I'm just trying to avoid situations that I could easily get sucked into that are going to make things more complicated for me. That's a big thing I'm trying to avoid, is complication inside of the
Big
relationship.
mad Candy.
And this
big
then
mad.
kind of naturally takes us to the second of those 4 categories, which is boundary setting. I think this is the biggest part of the game. And a big place where we can set boundaries, because we can't always set them
Bit
externally.
fast.
We can
I'll
a lot of the
slow it
time.
down,
We can't
sorry.
always. Is inside of yourself. What are the things that you just won't allow yourself to do with this person, regardless of how fun or how okay or how well they're doing or whatever? You're just not going to let that happen, okay? Because for me, it's really an agency thing. Like, that's where I can intervene.
Boundaries inside your own mind, I find, is actually the beginning, and it's the strongest, safest thing you can do. Because even setting an overt boundary, including, we need to do a quick call out here about safety.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, because
Huge piece.
abusive relationships usually are in the Dark Triad. I'm thinking from time to time for us, we should identify characters in fiction, like movie clips or TV shows, or
Mhm.
related to various things. And I'm thinking here about the film with, I believe, Jennifer Lopez, Enough, in which her husband starts out as a real charmer and he becomes physically abusive, even lethally so. And then, the movie unfolds from there. It's a good description, in a way, of that kind of a person. So obviously, the safest place is to set a boundary inside yourself, and then over time, do what you can that's safe for you. And if your own physical safety is at all, or your children or others you care about, is even at risk, it's generally recommended that you reach for resources outside of the relationship first, including sometimes you have to be very
Pardon me.
careful about that.
I'm just going to pause for a moment and say, their names are something, something, and something. Taryn knows. Boundary setting, I just want to pause for a moment there and say, it's really hard, almost impossible, to be able to set clear boundaries and maintain them for other people if you don't have your own boundaries for yourself. If you haven't sort of worked out what you are and are okay with and what you're not okay with in life, in terms of how people treat you or what you're willing to do. Even just being able to say no is a boundary in life. For me, one of the most important lessons or evolution that I have come to in my almost 50 years on this planet is being able to set clear boundaries kindly and maintain them with people. And so it's really important, but you need to know within yourself where your boundaries are before you can put them into practice. And it does take some practice. Absolutely. I think everybody's had too many gummies to tell you what their names are, lovely Beth. But the channel name, I'm sure the father and son duo, Forrest something, Gump, not Nelson, not Gump, something. But Forrest Hansen, there you go. And the father is Dad Hansen. Yes. Yes, the word no is a full sentence.
There's a fair amount of good wisdom about that. Get resources outside the relationship, including ranging, potentially a shelter you just go to. And then from there, work on the relationship if there's any hint of violence. Yeah. So inside yourself, and I think one of them is where you basically say to yourself, I'm just not going to care about that anymore. I'm not going to believe that anymore. I'm not going to let myself be worked on that anymore. They can run their guilt trip number.
Yes.
They can be threatening
Preach,
and
Dad.
intimidating.
Preach, Dad.
They can plea for my help. Inside myself, I'm just not going to let that control me.
Amen.
That's an internal boundary. I'm not going to take responsibility for their pain.
Amen.
I'm not responsible. I'm not going to do that.
Amen.
That's, I think, a really important point. And I will do little things, I admit it, inside the inner temple with certain kind of people. I just keep reminding myself, it's like a sign flashing, they're over there, I'm over here. Or it's a weird one, I'm not implicated in their mind stream. They have their own stream of consciousness. I have compassion for them. I wish them well, and it's not my fault. I'm not implicated.
Boom.
Or maybe even imagine a very thick wall of glass between you and them. They're saying it, but those messages are landing on the other side of the glass barrier, and they're not entering into your.
So what I've been saying in the last 4 weeks or so is that I will not absorb this, which is exactly what they're saying. Another thing you can say is like Teflon coated. My good friend Britt Ketchell said to me that she tells her children, they're varying in ages from pre-adolescent to I think early adulthood, but a good lesson, imagine yourself putting on a raincoat. We don't need to absorb the things, the toxic things that people say to us, which are often projection. For me, it's I will not absorb it. And if you know that I've been going, I've been under fire, I've been dragged on social media. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose. Ooh, dragged on social media. And it doesn't. It's sad when I see people who I thought were friends saying these awful things, but I refuse to absorb any of it because it's what other people think or say about me or to me is not my business, particularly when it's just toxic, vitriolic shit.
Your innermost being. Things like that can be actually really, really helpful for people neurologically when they're seducing you or manipulating you or trying to intimidate you. Tune into your own breathing in your chest as a whole. The internal sensations in your body, and particularly as a whole, tend to strengthen the sense of ongoingness and that you're okay. And they tend to strengthen your own sense of being grounded.
Yes, Steph. Amy Boston, our beautiful friend Amy Boston, said she just recently got a tattoo that says "Let them." Like, let them. It does. They're going to do what they're going to do. Don't let it come into you. Don't take on that toxicity. Don't take on that toxicity at all, because that's what they want, and that's a them problem. So let them.
And not overwhelmed by, what's coming at you.
Something I've become increasingly attentive to in my life is situations where things just feel really fuzzy with
Mwah.
people. And
Love
it's hard
yourselves.
to
See you
articulate
Feral
this
Friday
by
in a
their
bit.
very nature. Fuzzy things are hard to talk about. A lot of the time, people who have this combination of traits
Yeah,
really hate clarity. Clarity is kind of the enemy.
because it would pin them down.
Yeah, it would pin them down. It reduces their ability to do this different stuff with you. So they hate referring to the text. Note taking is the enemy. Okay. So if you can, again, this might be a form of more of a externalized boundary.
I think note taking, we could also, our buzzword these days in the true crime community in the social media world is receipts. The problem comes when certain pedo pirates manufacture photoshopped receipts that sways everybody's opinion. Anyway, Catherine, I'm so sorry that you get put down every day. That's awful. And that wears you down. I'm so sorry. You'll always find a kind, safe space here where nobody will ever put you down. So I'm sorry.
As opposed to one inside of yourself. See what it's like to make a clear agreement with them.
Yeah.
Are they open to making a clear agreement where, you say, hey, on Thursday, we're going to do A, B, and C. Are you up for doing A, B, and C? And they say, oh, okay, sure, maybe something like that. And you're like, well, okay, on Thursday, are you okay with doing A, B, and C? Again, there's this sort of fuzz that can permeate it, and your own willingness to get to clarity, particularly in more of a professional relationship, is where you can really do things like this formally.
Yes, Pierre, that's exactly what I'm saying. As an extreme empath, I've had to learn the skills to protect my sponge-like nature. It is in every core, every part of my being to absorb it all. And it's only been in, like, I want to say it's only been in about the last year that, for me personally, that I've honed the skill of not taking things personally, to understand it will be the ruination of me. It will be the ruination of me if I always let things come into me. I can't always, don't get me wrong, Pierre, there's been times in the last four weeks where I have been beside myself, devastated. It is so hurtful. But for the most part, this is how I'm handling myself, the way I'm handling myself through the last 4 weeks, particularly the last week, is because it's not touching me. It won't touch me. I refuse to let it. I refuse to let it. Hey, Alice, good to see you. It seems like society is set up to discourage boundary setting because narcissists and assholes, horrible people, don't like boundaries. Also, people who aren't used to setting boundaries for themselves, they've never practiced and worked that out for themselves, don't like having boundaries put on them. People like to do whatever they want to do. Well, that's not practical for anybody. So if we get used to hearing clear boundaries, the only way we're going to get used to it is by, we have to be the ones that set the boundaries. And the number of people that don't like boundaries, that go and they're out, well, then they're not the right people, right? They're not the right people for you. But the more we normalize setting boundaries for ourselves, fair, respectful, reasonable boundaries, then it's like telling the truth. The more we say what we actually think and mean and feel in difficult conversations, the more that becomes normalized. It doesn't seem so sort of abrasive. It's such an important thing. Such an important thing. We're here for you, Catherine. Always. We're here for each other. Join our Discord if you'd like. We'd love to have you hanging in Discord. It is beautiful. We're growing a beautiful community there, where this chat conversation continues or not. We could just shoot the shit in there as well. If you do come into the Discord and you have a different handle than your YouTube handle, it would be really helpful if you could let us know what your name is on YouTube so we can put a name to a face, or a name to a name. And also because, Steve Cody tried to come in about a week ago. Thanks, mate. It's going to be a no. Bye. And also, perhaps there are some people trying to infiltrate our space, but I think they know we see them. We see their flying monkeys. We know. So Laura just joined the server. Welcome. I see you. And
Really?
Kevin said hi.
And do sort of clear note taking around it. Even just for yourself, honestly, if you feel like you're in a situation, this is another term that gets overused a lot, but if you feel like you're in a real situation where somebody's actually gaslighting you, you're actually starting to doubt your experience of reality and starting to have a hard time inside of yourself determining whether or not the thoughts that you...
What the duck? Are you good with setting boundaries? Because leading by example for your daughter, who she says, my daughter, her neurodivergence makes her a major empath. Same girl. She feels everything. Same. She's only 15, so I'm hoping she can find her boundaries at some point. I think role modeling and those kind of things and teaching her by showing her about boundary settings with others and standing to your boundaries can be an amazing starting point for that. And that's just parenting in general, isn't it? Yes.
that you're having or the memories that you're having are truly accurate or not, start writing stuff down, just kind of descriptive. On April 4th, he said that he would pick up the kids at Y time. And then on April 5th, he did not pick up the kids at Y time. Whatever it is, like really keep a journal for yourself of these interactions. It can be very clarifying.
That's great. And I got to tell you, as we talk here,
can I just pause again? Sorry, chat, but you guys are coming up for some really good conversation right now. Kraken says, I broke through the threshold of not knowing I was being gaslit to recognizing I was being gaslit to where I'm now listening to the gaslighting, giggling and walking away. It's a very liberating feeling, isn't it? It's like, this isn't working on me. So being able to not absorb everything is also a component of that, recognizing and resisting the gaslighting. It's a hard pull, man. It's two concrete blocks on your ankles pulling you down. The gaslighting is strong. Can I also say that it's really easy to gaslight oneself? So knowing when you're gaslighting yourself, and say, no, I know this about me, or I know this about this situation, my instinct, my research, my experience, whatever it is that makes you really know. Don't let yourself go, maybe I'm just, no. Back yourself. Yes, gaslighting is another one of those buzzwords these days, which are like narcissist, overused. But I think that things like that become overused because they're prevalent around us, right? The gaslighting is real. And even in the Karen Reid trial, like Jen McCabe and her gaslighting, man.
Here, I'm reminded of people I've had to deal with in therapy, like, yeah, so it's all coming back to me.
Stories removed to protect the innocent or the not so innocent.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And in a way, you're getting at trust, and you're describing people that we can, if you will, trust to be sociable and pleasant, as long as XYZ.
Yeah.
So we trust them.
It's all conditional. Totally. Yeah.
And I think that in terms of setting boundaries, one of the things that we do and can do is to unilaterally, we don't need their permission. That's an internal boundary to remind yourself, I don't need their permission to do this or that, right? Setting that inside yourself. And then on the basis of it, often without discussion, you just disengage from them, and you only engage with them in the space that you can trust them in. Very simple. So quick story for myself. I had a boss a long time ago, nearly 40 years ago, who way back when tried to stiff me out of several $1,000s 35 years ago, 40 years ago, that he owed me. And it blew my mind because he was such a nice guy. But I came to realize that in certain areas, I could not trust him. But I could trust him to, have a charming conversation at a party. So that's what I mean. Sometimes what we do when we set boundaries externally, we just do it, on our own. We don't have to explain. We don't need their permission. We definitely should not apologize, but we just do it. And then life goes a lot better, because to ground a relationship that's bigger than its foundations in trust is a setup.
Everybody loves Cox.
On the other hand, if you can trust the person and the relationship is smaller than the opportunity for trust, well, then sometimes that's a missed opportunity. But to go the other way, that's kind of dangerous.
So if you're communicating with somebody, if you need to have a conversation, particularly about something that there's, some amount of stake on the table with somebody with this kind of a structured ad. Is there a way that you're approaching it, or the way that you're thinking about it?
Well, we wrote a lot about this in our book, Resilient, in terms of the strengths there around intimacy, which is grounded in.
I didn't notice. I didn't pick up on that when I watched this the first time. They have a book called Resilient. I wonder if it's an audio book. Hang on, chat. Let me check.
Autonomy. And then also in the
Autonomy
chapter
is important to
on
me.
courage, interpersonal courage, and even the one on generosity, which is about forgiveness. So people can check that out. I think that what's really helpful is, first of all, to clarify in your own mind what's actually true. And then clarify for yourself, what do you care about? What are the relevant principles or values? Like reciprocity. Loose reciprocity over time is of value. Truth-telling. Willingness to take responsibility for broken agreements and to keep the agreement going forward. What are the basic principles you care about? And then sort out what it is that you're asking
Lulu.
for,
Good to see you.
and what it is that you're simply communicating. Asking for, that takes you down the road of agreement setting. And often these kind of people don't want to do that. And by the second or third time,
Did he say resilience? Is that what the name that he said of the name of the book was? Resilience? My brain already.
you've gone through this process and they've broken the agreement, you start to see what you're dealing with here. People in this Dark Triad territory don't have much of a learning curve about it. I mean, for example, in psychotherapy world, the success rate in treatment, as it were, for narcissistic personality disorder or antisocial personality disorder, as it's called, is notoriously low. It's tough because these people like being the way they are and don't intend to change it. It's the problem of other people who need to adjust
Thanks,
to them,
Amber.
right? So you realize, I'm going to take a few shots at trying to say something to you, but fairly quickly, if I realize that this is like trying to get blood from a stone, then I move on. And then at that point, it's not so much making requests, but it's making declarations.
Yes. Yeah. We move from asking to telling pretty rapidly.
Notifying.
Yeah. Notifying. Notifying is a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I also think that a part of this is gets to the style of communication that gets used. Again, fuzz is the enemy here.
Yeah.
So the more that you can be not unkind, not even pushy, but just direct.
Amber, could you please drop that link in the chat, the Amazon link? I don't think it's on Audible. I don't do reading books very well these days. My my ADHD is unmedicated and she's tough to wrangle. But if anyone would like to get their book, Resilience, Amber has found a link in Amazon. I might still get it.
And clear and non-emotional, the less fuzz you will find yourself in. It's really easy to get sucked into an argument with other people. It's really easy for them in particular to start getting choosy about language, choosy about specific.
Thank you. Actually, it's just coming on to 1 p.m. here. 1 p.m. on whatever date it is. Saturday. But yes, thanks. I've been up since 3 because sleep. Why? Why would you?
Words? What do you mean by this word that you used? I'm having a hard time finding the perfect example here. Again, like fuzz is sometimes hard to talk about. But there are situations where you'll be talking to somebody and you'll say something along the lines of, hey, in this kind of a situation, if you're going to come to it, I need you to not do this sort of a behavior. Whatever the sort of behavior is. Maybe it gets to substance use.
Maybe it gets to where you get to a point where you say, you have to go on a live stream to say, I need you to stop talking about me on your live streams. Get my name out of your mouth. They don't like it, huh? We'll do what we want.
Maybe it's about interacting with a person at the party. In general, I would try to avoid
Folk.
inviting
Come
this
on over
person
when
into
we're
a
done.
situation where I felt like I needed to regulate their behavior, because part of the personality structure is that it's very difficult to regulate their behavior, but just as an example here. And if you get asked a question in response along the lines of like, well, what do you mean, behave appropriately? What do you mean not drink? Like, is one drink not drinking? Like, are you worried about my drinking? Or are you worried about my me being drunk? We're already in the danger zone. We're already way in the danger zone. And this is a kind of behavior that I think that people with this constellation of traits tend to do a lot. What do you think about this, Dad? You can maybe put a finer point on this. I feel like I'm struggling to articulate it.
I'm so glad that you're bringing this up because you're really talking about people where they move from the particular topic on the table, like, how buzzed are they at a family
there you go.
gathering?
Yeah, great.
Yep.
Good example.
And for them, it moves really fast past how buzzed they're going to be in some kind of reasonable understanding about to the larger thing that they're resisting being quote unquote controlled or regulated. And they're resisting their basic script, which is I get to be freewheeling and other people need to, stay within the lines and meet my needs. And what you can do when you're talking with them is you can track that movement.
That might be that's a great motto. Excuse me. Sally Unicorn says, my favorite motto is you don't have to accept every argument you're invited into. And these days, a lot of those invitations are in the baiting that goes on Twitter, right? On X. You don't need, just because they're baiting you and wanting to fight doesn't mean you have to go with it. I never do. Oh, no, not never. I occasionally will come in and call the baiter out on what they're baiting me on with facts, rationally, calm, objectively, no attack, no argument, and then I dip. But I just don't, because you don't need to accept every argument. And these days, I think mostly people don't want to be people don't really be fighting in IRL, do they? But geez, they want to be arguing on Twitter.
And particularly if you see that for a certain person, their primary aim is to avoid any kind of normal range, reciprocal, working stuff out with friends, family members, coworkers, whatever, that's about aligning around behavioral expectations that are shared in common. That's a fancy way of putting it. They just don't want to do that. They're going to fight you on that. And they don't really understand why you should even have the right. Because to use a kind of an example, if your proper function in life is to essentially serve as their right arm, it's appalling to them and astounding that the right arm and the right hand would think it has any rights of its own.
Would rebel against its owner. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what? It's a little bit as if the hand started talking. Hey, Rick, don't be such a fool. Like that would be shocking to them. So when you start to get the feeling that you're the palm of their hand and they don't understand why you're speaking up in any individuated way that is not like-minded. People in this territory pull for like-mindedness, and they don't really understand differences, that other people have needs and wants of their own that have as much standing as theirs. And so when you start to realize that what you're bumping into is a lack of that underlying assumption that others have the basically same standing you do, and so forth, that's a real clue also that you're dealing with this kind of a person.
Thank you for helping me there with figuring out how to put words to that, because it's such an experience that I've had sometimes in interacting with people. But again, like the fuzz is the enemy. It's sometimes hard to figure out exactly how to talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they're really good at pushing the accountability ball across to your side of the court.
Yes.
They're really good at making it seem like this is about you. Right? Why are you complaining so much? Or why are you so uptight? Or why are you so protective of others? Or don't you trust me? Well, actually, no, I don't trust you.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
If you really loved me, you would just accept all of me.
Muted.
It's definitely a thing. I do want to speak to a particular situation that I do think can happen.
Yeah.
You can have a friend or a family member or a romantic partner who has some of, as a whisper, has a pixie dust of these different traits. So in like a normal range, we are all a little bit narcissistic. Everybody has normal range variation around these different traits. It's all okay. With somebody who you've really cultivated a positive relationship with alongside those traits, it might be possible to have a direct conversation with them about aspects of these things. Aspects of, hey, Bob, it's a flow of a normal conversation. You get into, well, I just feel like you kind of mostly care about yourself, or hey, I feel like you have a hard time kind of seeing me as my own individual person with my own individual needs. It might be possible to get there. Most of the time, with most people, it is not possible to get there. And rather than focusing on the personality construction of a person, it's generally more helpful to focus just on behavior. Kind of like you were saying, that to get specific about behavior and to be clear about behavior and to establish standards of behavior where you can, as opposed to getting sucked into a conversation about the deeper personality traits that behavior is based off of.
I want to talk about countertransference.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, that's a psych term, goes back to psychoanalysis. It's the idea that we transfer into here and now relationships, patterns that we've learned previously, including going all the way back to childhood. So Freud initially talked about the client or patient's transference to the psychotherapist, various kinds of things. And then the term evolved, countertransference, the reaction of the therapist to the client. And
You're an idiot,
one
Zach.
thing that's really useful about that is to use that as basic information. So for example, for me, if I'm around somebody and I start feeling like I need to keep doing things to prove my worth, that's an internal big flashing light warning. I'm dealing with someone who's probably fairly narcissistic on the other side of the table. That's an internal cue. So if you're, for example, starting to feel like you're just foggy or fuzzy about what the facts really are, it's sort of like, they talked about Steve Jobs having this reality distortion field, radiating out from him, in which, in good ways, I guess, he was getting people super psyched about his products. And then they'd leave the meeting, and a day or so later, they would think, what was he talking about? Well, if you start feeling like you're in a reality distortion field internally, okay, that's a good indicator. If you start feeling like you're in doubt of your own worth around this person, that's an indicator. If you feel smaller rather than larger as a being around this kind of person, that's another indicator. If you start questioning in ways that are not constructive, but are kind of toxic for you, the justice, the worthiness in what it is that you're asking for, the legitimacy of what it is you're asking for, that's another clue. And also, I would say that if you feel like somewhat you're on eggshells with this other person and you need to placate them or kind of appease them to keep everything going on an even keel, that's another internal counter-transferential clue, as it were, as well.
Counter-transferential.
Incredible list, Dad, and a great way of simplifying some of the terminology that we've explored throughout this episode down to more of a feeling-driven kind of everyday sense that we might have inside of ourselves. Because I don't know why I keep on saying it toward the end of this episode, but the fuzz is the enemy. There's something about these relationships where there is a fuzziness to them that can creep in, that makes them actually difficult to talk about or explore inside of ourselves because we feel a way, but we don't really know why we feel the way. And am I the problem? Are they the problem? This cloud of mystery that supports people, frankly, in maintaining the facade that's associated with their behavior.
That's so perceptive, I think. Like there's a place for fuzz. Like if in relationships with
stuff's complicated,
regular folks, they're not in this triad. Yeah, it's kind of fuzzy. And it doesn't feel like you get ambushed out of the shadows.
Sure,
right?
Yeah. Nobody's lurking in the dark.
Yeah, you work it out. Like you and I, we work stuff out. What are we talking about? It's a little fuzzy, but we clarify it or something. Okay. But if you're with a particular person and routinely that when it's fuzzy, you get the shaft. By the second time that's happened, that's a big warning sign. That's a big orange light flashing on the inner dashboard.
Totally. And to maybe put a slightly finer point on something that I was saying earlier, I am a guy who loves a clarifying question.
Yeah, that's true.
I am here all day for do not get me wrong. I love a clarifying question. I think that, hey, what do you mean by fill in the blank is a phenomenal question. It's about the way that question is offered. And is that question the constant question?
Yeah.
Particularly when every time that you feel like you're trying to influence this person's behavior, if every response to influence a person has makes you start to feel like you're engaging in a legal argument, that is a very good sign that something is going sideways.
Yeah.
So as we get to the end here, I had one more point on our little 4-point plan here, and that's self-care. And I think it's really important to recognize, particularly if you're in situations where you can't easily escape this person. They're in that family member, boss, really good friend of a really good friend sort of situation where you're just kind of around them a lot. These relationships take a toll on us because we need to think about all of this BS constantly while we're interacting with this person. That is a real cost. Maintaining it requires way more of your energy than it would if they didn't have those traits, right? And so this means that you are probably going to need some additional time, some additional space for the things that recharge you, that make you feel good. It also means that it's good to understand your vulnerabilities because, believe me, these people also understand your vulnerabilities and they will deliberately push on them if they need to. Can you do things to anticipate that?
So deliberately push on them. I feel that in my bones again for the last 4-5 weeks now, particularly the last week. You got to know where to push back. Like, privately lol. I'm not gonna publicly lol, but the things that my beautiful group of friends, my moderators in our private mod chat, we just chuckle at some of the attempts to push the buttons, my buttons. Some people are more susceptible to having their buttons pushed and reacting, but if you can have that non-absorption, that raincoat, that wall of glass between that stuff, it doesn't work, and they hate it. They hate it. They hate it. Nothing touches us if we are resolute in not absorbing this shit.
When going into an interaction with them, to prepare yourself for that kind of exploitative behavior, if that's something that you're going to have to deal with. Is there anything else that you would like to add here, Dad?
I want to talk about this in workplace settings. 2 suggestions here that
Thanks,
I think
Brett.
are related to work relationships, frankly, and also romantic relationships. One is build up a paper trail, especially in a work environment. Just as you said, Forrest,
Receipts.
an email trail,
Receipts.
memorializing understandings,
Receipts.
jotting down your notes, walking out of a meeting, and in a very good faith kind of way, putting it on the table, inviting the oversight of third parties. Very often, again, one of the tells. Oh, and this could lead into cultism. Gosh, we could really talk about that, because very often charismatic leaders of cults have these qualities. One of the characteristics of someone in the Dark Triad is they try to get you alone. They don't want other witnesses. They don't like that. They don't want to spread the
Yikes.
information out. So workplace
Yikes.
setting or otherwise, getting other people involved, building up a paper trail, really, really good. Last, I find it really helpful to just keep in mind that 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000.
Vixie, a covert narc, right? Doing things in a more subtle way, just as damaging. Yikes.
Yeah, maybe 1 in 100 chance that the wheels could really come off catastrophically, and this person could really seek to do you harm. Do
We all
not
love
underestimate
receipts. Bring the receipts.
what people can do when push comes to shove, and I'm going to put it a certain kind of way, the primate mask falls
Hi,
away,
Michelina.
and what's revealed is this reptilian core. Be thoughtful. Be careful. Take your time, especially if it's a significant consequential relationship. Not to get freaked out, not to be morbid, not to play
Good one, huh, Laura?
too many, thrillers and horror movies in your mind. and
something to be attentive to. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
Keep your
it's
eyes
a real
wide open for it.
thing. And if you interact with 100 people over the course of your life, statistically, 1 or 2 of them are going to be a diagnosable narcissist. 1 or 2 of them are going to be a diagnosable sociopath.
Yeah.
These are real things that happen to people. And it's good to both be aware of them without allowing the fact that these are possible things, without allowing that to just totally overwhelm us, cloud us, just create a lot of needless anxiety.
Yeah.
Maybe transport some of that into perfectly healthy, perfectly normal relationships with really normal people who are just expressing their own normal narcissistic needs, or having a just kind of a bad moment in an interaction with you. And so
Amber makes a good point here. Kraken Studio, yes, letters, texts, the only way to get through your full point too. They can't logical fallacy redirect that way. And we're going to do a whole stream on logical fallacies and the whole gaslighting, fake news, propaganda, forced narrative bullshit of it all. So that's coming up in the next week or so. 16 Nights of Shorty continues. I think we're on night 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know.
writing that line is a lot of what we're talking about here today.
Yeah, that leads me to, if I could, Forrest,
Mhm.
surface a couple quick points here.
Yeah, sure.
There will be people who have some of these tendencies themselves who are listening here. And what do you do about that? And so I want to say that it's not unusual at all for people, when push comes to shove, to have some of these qualities, or just unwittingly. They grew up in various environments. Maybe they grew up with privilege in certain kinds of ways. They just didn't know better. They just kind of expected that, they never had to carry money because somebody else always just sort of handled that for them. They didn't know. So what do you do then? And I think that there's really a place for growth in this area, for realizing, okay, I have some of these tendencies. Maybe they're the result of a lot of
Vixie.
mistreatment. I mean, for example, in childhood,
Vixie, I'm so
if your
sorry.
normal narcissistic needs are, for various reasons, not really met by your parents or your peers, then it's understandable sometimes when you become an adult that there's this unresolved hunger inside for those kind of supplies. Maybe you lack certain social skills. You just grew up in a different kind of environment that didn't really particularly take others into account. Okay, there are lots of things a person can do to kind of reestablish themselves in a fundamental integrity system in which they open their heart to others and take others into account in a way that is relatively normal range and reciprocal. And that's something any individual can do. And it's really important. You're not stuck. Second, I'm thinking, frankly, of many cases where people crashed and burned. They went through, they had these characteristics. They may have grown up perhaps in violent settings where it was unsafe to not live in the Dark Triad. That was their model for relationships. And then they ended up in prison, let's say. They took a hard look at their life. Or maybe they didn't end up in prison, but something happened that led them also perhaps around religion sometimes. They took a really hard look on their life, and they really changed as a result. So I want to make sure that we maintain our growth mindset here, in terms of what's really possible, and that we open it up, obviously for, people to find their way home, to really, really listening to the better angels of their nature.
Yeah.
I love that term, growth mindset. I think that's such an important mindset to always be in the mindset of always growing, green and growing, always evolving, always learning more about ourselves, more about other people. Beautiful. Growth mindset. I love it. I think that should be merch along with production assistant, right, chat?
Yeah, love that, Dad. I think it's a great note
Love that,
to
Dad.
end our conversation today on. As per the norm with these
Oh.
topics, we could just kind of keep on going here. There's a lot to talk about. Thanks again, Dad, for doing this with me. This was
Thank
really
you.
great. So what are some of the things to look out for here? First, a excessive focus on the self. Rick had a great line. It was something along the lines of, when you assert your own needs, they look at you kind of like you're a hand that just started talking to them, because they have this sense of their individual self as the sun around which everything revolves. And the notion that a planet could just start spinning off into the solar system on its own is just like kind of mind-boggling for them. These people often have a very difficult time admitting fault. They tend to express limited remorse or guilt when they are at fault. And they tend to have a lack of genuine empathy. It's important to keep in mind here that the ends that this person might be pursuing could—
Wait, Michelle, I just noticed your display pic. I love it. You win today. Michelle, you win today. Love. So good. So good.
could also coincide with the ends that you want to pursue. Maybe their end is developing a really great friendship with you, because friendships are really useful. Friendships are resources that can be tapped when needed. It gets them somebody who says nice things about them. Yeah, I love a friendship. But the fundamental orientation is highly self-centered. Another great indicator is manipulative or controlling behavior, particularly things like gaslighting, which we talked about briefly during the episode. This is when you cause somebody to doubt themselves or their experience of reality. It's also one of those terms that has been popularized and therefore is used very excessively and very inaccurately by people. But if you're really questioning your own reality, and particularly your own recollection of events, and if you start to feel yourself get really sucked into their recollection—
Oh my God, so triggered. Everyone's head went, who? Oh,
recollection of events, but you look back at the journal that you keep and wow, their recollection is really different from what's in that journal. That's a really good indicator. We then moved toward talking about what we can do inside of these interactions and inside of these relationships with people. But before we did that, we gave a couple of disclaimers here. First, there is a big difference between somebody's behavior in a unique setting and their personality structure as a whole. Your boss might seem like a narcissist to you, but not present that way at all at home, because it's a totally different setting and they're not actually a narcissist. And so, yeah, it's still a problem for you, but it doesn't mean that they have diagnosable NPD. It could also be a situation where you and your boss come from different cultural backgrounds or have very different assumptions about the way that a work relationship works. And there's a difference here between not liking somebody, or even them being kind of mean to us pretty regularly, and them being either a narcissist or a sociopath. Not all bad behavior is indicative of somebody's underlying personality structure. It could be that the two of you just don't get along. And at the same time, we have to balance all of those truths with protecting ourselves and with seeing the world clearly and not getting sucked in to that kind of a gaslighting process. So there's a real line that we're walking here. I tend to walk it on the side of being very careful about thinking about somebody this way or referring to somebody this way, particularly referring to somebody this way with other people. Okay, so you've recognized that your friend, your boss, maybe your significant other, who knows?
Sorry, chat. I'm just gonna go off screen for a second. I'm crying laughing here. That was the funniest thing ever. Just watch. We got one more video after this. It's Dr. Ramani. So we're back to Dr. Ramani talking about the Dark Triad and the Light Triad. It's about 18 minutes long. So we'll do that and then we'll go over and do Feral Friday. Okay.
Who knows, has these kinds of tendencies. What do we do? Rick made a great point. I want to say it again at the end of this episode. If you are interacting with somebody who is at the high end of the spectrum, maybe they're not formally diagnosable, but man, they've got a lot of these traits. And particularly if you're in a relationship with them, the first step in any kind of abusive or exploitative relationship is to establish as much safety as possible. Do whatever you can to make yourself more safe. The second is to figure out how to escape that relationship. Those are the two things that you do. You establish safety, you create a plan, then you get out of there. And from there, from that safe distance, then you can make some choices. Then you can start doing some different things. But it is so important to protect yourself first. And that's really outside of the scope of this conversation, but we did want to name it here. So then turning toward the more mild to moderate side of the spectrum, or maybe situations where it's really difficult for you to leave this other person for whatever reason, most of the good advice falls into 4 categories. First, awareness. Second, boundary setting. Third, thoughtful communication. And then fourth, self-care. Starting with awareness, when you're interacting with somebody who has this kind of a personality structure, it is really important to keep that fact floating around in the back of your mind most of the time. This could mean avoiding different topics or putting on your own mask with them that supports you in protecting yourself. And this transitions smoothly into boundary setting. And Rick really emphasized the importance of setting boundaries inside of yourself. It can be difficult, if not actively dangerous, to set boundaries externally with somebody who has these traits. But you can set boundaries inside of yourself. What are the things that you're going to stop worrying about with this person? Are you going to let go of a need to be approved of by them, a need to be loved by them, a need to be seen by them in a certain kind of way? What are the behaviors that you're going to choose to stop?
Amber, Taryn, my actual production assistant, no, just Taryn, my good friend and computer whiz extraordinaire, has worked out how to timestamp things. So clip it. 2:18 self-care. Yes.
Stop doing with this person? What are the conversations you're going to avoid with them? What are the settings that you're just not going to be around them in anymore? How can you set boundaries inside of yourself? That's where you have the most agency that really protects.
I was literally laughing so hard I almost fell off my stool because I sit on a chair with a stool with no back on it. I almost fell off the stool. Sorry, that was just the best thing ever.
Protect your peace. This then segued into a conversation that we had about fuzz, which was fuzzy to talk about, difficult to talk about, but I think is really an important part of all of this. When you're communicating with somebody who has these personality traits, it is really easy to get sucked into discussions or arguments that start to feel really complicated and kind of unclear, and no one really knows exactly what other people are saying. There's a lot of legalese about what did we mean by this sort of a word. And that fuzz really permeates interactions with people who have those personality traits because the fuzz supports them. The fog supports them in keeping up the charade. They hate relentless clarity. They hate written agreements. What does this mean? It's really helpful to be clear, and it's really helpful to particularly create clear agreements when you can. The setting where it's easiest to do this in a safe way is at work, but there might be ways to do this in your personal relationships as well. Finally, self-care. You can recognize that managing all of this stuff, dealing with all of this overhead inside of an interaction that you don't have with somebody who doesn't have these traits comes with real costs for you. Costs of your time, costs of your effort, costs of your brain space occupied by thinking about this stuff. And you really have to balance maintaining a relationship with this kind of a person against those costs if it's a relationship that's volitional for you. It also means that you might have to set aside some additional time to take care of yourself, to do the practices that you know are fulfilling for you. It might mean understanding some of your vulnerabilities and the ways in which that person could activate those vulnerabilities, even deliberately. Then Rick closed by mentioning that even if you do all of these things, it's important to remember that the wheels could really fall off here. These are often pretty volatile people. And because they lack empathy, and because they don't have a great sense for social norms or moral behavior, or they do have a great sense for it and they just don't care about it at all, relationships with these people can really go sideways. So it's important to protect ourselves along the way, including really considering what we're going to do if things do go sideways with this person. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I had a really good time with this one. If you've been listening for a while and you haven't subscribed to the podcast yet, please subscribe when you have a chance. If you've been listening and you would prefer to be watching it, you can find us on YouTube, but you can just search for Forrest Hansen and you'll find my channel. And if you'd like to support us in other ways, you can find us on Patreon. It's patreon.com/beingwellpodcast. And for just a couple of dollars a month, you can support the show and you'll receive a bunch of bonuses in return. Until next time, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.
Chad, I'll put that episode, I'll put all 3 episodes into the description box as per. We've got one more to do. Can we do one more? Because it's the dark and the light triad. I think it'll be really refreshing for us to hear about the flip side, which is only a very new psychological theory of a cluster of personalities. And for me, it gave me a lot of reassurance, validation that I'm not everything that my friends have been saying about me. So we definitely need that laugh. It was so good, Amber. Hang on, wait. I got to do this first. Let me just get this. It's Dr. Ramani. We love her. It's 18 minutes long, and then we'll go to Publicly Buzzed for Friday.
Hi, everyone.
Right?
It's Dr. Ramani. Welcome back to this YouTube channel on all things that explain all the things that you ever wanted to know about narcissism, probably more than a few you kind of wish you didn't know. We are going to take on a really interesting topic today that came from some fascinating reading that I literally stumbled on when I sort of every day I devote a little bit of time
Oh, wait. Full
to
screen.
scholarly reading in the field just to keep myself up. And that took me down this really interesting rabbit hole, which I'm excited to share with you today. I'm going to talk about something called the light triad. I know a lot of you have heard about the dark triad.
This is so good.
Wait to hear about the light triad.
Yes, wait.
It's really fascinating. And before I get to that, as always, please subscribe, join this channel. As you can see, we talk about everything, including some of the really interesting science in this field too. So let's talk a little bit about the light triad. Now we'll start by saying the dark triad definitely sounds heavy, and it sort of is. It's a personality model that was described in 2002 by researchers Delroy, Paulhus, and Kevin Williams. And the dark triad is comprised of 3 kind of rather difficult patterns of Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and narcissism. Machiavellianism, in essence, is sort of like manipulation. These researchers believe that we need to study and understand these 3 patterns together. And they even go on to say that we all have a little bit of this dark triad in us, just enough that sometimes we know how to work the system to protect ourselves. But in many ways, the dark triad is the core of the malignant narcissist. Like I said, Machiavellianism is meant to be manipulativeness, using other people to achieve your goals, and even exploitation of other people. Narcissism, you know, you've been on this channel. It's the usual grandiosity.
Fuck. You know me, chat. You know me.
You are unmuted.
I hope you use the emojis. I can't wait to see them. There it is. Boom. Just in enough time. Just by the time I'm unmuted. Yeah. Taryn, can you please drop the link to the test? I want to do that test too. I mean, we're going to. I think most of us might go, "Hey, wait, cool. I'm a light triad kind of a person. Thank God."
The entitlement, the dominance, the superiority. Psychopathy is represented by impulsivity, low empathy, low anxiety. Paulhus and Williams argue that these 3 personality styles come together and reflect a collective personality style of self-promotion, deceitfulness, potential aggression, callousness, and coldness. Another common factor that they found was something that they termed disagreeableness. Disagreeableness is sort of the opposite of agreeableness. People who are disagreeable break the rules of social functioning.
Wait.
They don't.
I am interested to listen to that one too, lovely Beth, because I had many dark years, and there came a time, and I wonder whether this it is. I wonder whether this is it, and I look forward to listening to it. Where I realized that because I had nobody in my life, nobody, and I had a lot of negative self-talk. I decided to change really consciously and actively, not just my internal monologue. And I realize not everybody has an internal monologue, but I absolutely do. I also would speak out loud when I did anything that was remotely positive and that I should be proud of, whether a tiny thing like, hey, you made it on time. Well, that's a huge thing, but I would say it out loud, and then I'd say thank you. And then I'd say back to myself, no worries, mate. Credit where credit's due, like every time. And actually I changed the neuroplasticity of my brain. I feel like that's what it's going to be about. I just didn't know that there was a name for it. Boom.
Could really concern themselves with other people's feelings. They're more than willing
I'm going to
to
speed
be
her up a little bit in
self-promoting,
this section because we've heard it before.
and they do not compromise. There's a sort of a interpersonal unpleasantness to them. In this 2002 article by these researchers, they didn't peg any one of the 3 dark triad pieces as the worst. They view that the manipulativeness of Machiavellianism and narcissism as definitely, obviously, not being good for relationships. They themselves, Paulhus and Williams, believe that they didn't think this pattern was dangerous per se. I'm not sure I agree with that. I actually think this pattern can be quite dangerous. And while the psychopathy, they acknowledge is dangerous, no personality, their argument is that there's no personality style that's out there that's developed in human beings that doesn't have some functionality. And because psychopaths have lower anxiety, it does mean that they can do certain cold surgical jobs like being a CEO or a surgeon or being in the military without having that anxiety or inner turmoil that would slow them down. Paulhus and Williams argue that the 3 parts of the dark triad have their own groove, and they're not identical, but they do hang out together. The psychiatrist John Gartner has also spoken about these malignant personality styles. And when he talks about this kind of malignant sort of dark triad kind of pattern, he also adds sadism and paranoia to the mix. Now, if you have a dark triad person in
Interesting.
your life, it's
Yes.
pretty much going to unfold like kind of a malignant narcissistic relationship.
Sorry, I
Menacing,
need to go back there.
controlling, cold.
Did you hear what she just said? We're drawing inference to things that maybe we've been witnessing lately. I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. She said sadism and paranoia. And I think, yeah, that.
If you have a dark triad person in this being in the military without having that anxiety or inner turmoil that would slow them down. Paulhus and Williams argue that the 3 parts of the dark triad have their own groove, and they're not identical, but they do hang out together. The psychiatrist John Gartner has also spoken about these malignant personality styles. And when he talks about this kind of malignant sort of dark triad kind of pattern, he also adds sadism and paranoia to the mix. Now, if you have a dark triad person in your life, it's pretty much going to unfold like kind of a malignant narcissistic relationship. Menacing, controlling, cold, cruel, calculating, unsettling, rageful. And of all the narcissistic relationships, may be the one, maybe most likely to become violent, or at least feel like the potential for violence is always right there under the surface. The darkness was always there. You either didn't have a choice
Hybrid.
in terms of entering this
I
kind
love
of
that you're
malignant
here
relationship.
quietly.
Maybe it was like your parent or a sibling, or you thought you could master it, or you can't forget, malignant narcissists can be quite charming, charismatic, confident. You were drawn to those superficial traits. But here's where it gets interesting. There's a person named Scott Kaufman, and he has this really great blog called Beautiful Minds in Scientific American. Check it out. It's really, really good. And he writes about the light triad. Now, the light triad is comprised of 3 elements.
I'm slowing it
Something
down.
that him and his team call Kantianism. It's named after the philosopher Immanuel Kant, which means that a person higher in this Kantianism means that they treat a person as a person and see the value in that person as a person and not as a means or a tool to get what you want. The second part of their light triad is humanism, which is your willingness and your ability to value the dignity of each individual person. And the third element of the light triad is faith in humanity, that you believe in the fundamental goodness of human beings. Kaufman takes an interesting kind of attack and perspective on this. He believes that nobody is all light or all dark, but that we have a little of each in us. Now, in the world of understanding narcissistic abuse, there is definitely a tipping point in which the dark traits hit a certain critical mass that pushes them into interpersonally toxic, problematic, and even abusive spaces. And I can actually see if a person has too much light triad in them, that they could easily get played. Everyone's great. Everyone's nice. Let's give them all the benefit of the doubt. Before you know it, your wallet's been lifted. But perhaps the right answer is somewhere in the middle-ish, but definitely favoring the light triad, right? I would say 2/3 into the middle, into the light, right? Now, Kaufman sees all of this as a continuum, which makes sense. Kaufman and his team's research shows that they statistically found that dark triad styles were seen more often in younger people, in men, in people motivated by power, in people who have what they termed instrumental sex, which in essence is sex that's just really meant to get off or to get power or pleasure and not for connection or intimacy. People with dark triad were more driven by achievement and had a much more extroverted style. He also found that the dark triads
Hi,
were
Havana.
higher on something called self-enhancement, and that they used immature defense styles like projection or denial. They were more materialistic, more consumeristic, more selfish, and were grandiose enough to get lost in the idea that their certain type of creativity and spirituality would allow them to transcend death. And there's that toxic positivity again. The dark triad folks in his study also had lower satisfaction with life, lower conscientiousness. And conscientiousness is really sort of discipline. So these folks had lower levels of discipline, lower levels of orderliness, and sort of lower levels of willingness to stick to the rules and even stick-to-itiveness. Not surprisingly, they were less agreeable. And dark triad styles were also associated with lower compassion, lower empathy, and a lower sense that human beings are trustworthy and good, or even, that human beings were good. They don't see it that way. If it's like this, if that's how they are, how is it that people in the dark triad succeed? They kind of sound icky, right? Or that people fall in love with the dark triad types, which they do a lot. Kaufman argues that there is a piece of it that once you can pull out all that icky antagonistic stuff out of the dark triad, the thing that you're left with is assertiveness. And that assertiveness is what draws people to them. And if you ignore all that dark stuff, you might just see the assertiveness. Now, let's talk about the light triad, because that's what you may identify with for yourselves, and it may help you understand a lot. Light triad people in their research tended to be older, were more likely to be female, had less chaotic childhoods, and higher religiosity, spirituality, life satisfaction. They were more open to other people. They believed that other people are good. They had higher levels of compassion, higher levels of empathy, were open to a wider range of new experiences and opinions, and were more conscientious. Light triad people also had more secure attachment styles, and they were higher in curiosity, kindness, forgiveness, and gratitude. Now, unlike the dark triads and the like triads, you would see more what we call evolved defensive styles. You'd see things like humor or sublimation. When you sublimate something, it's like when you take that emotional conflict and you turn it into creative work, such as art or writing or other human activity.
Writing music.
And the light triad folks were more optimistic. But light triad folks were not necessarily assertive. Interestingly, Kaufman says both groups
Excuse me, I'm
are
sorry, what?
curious.
I
But
beg
the
your
light
pardon?
folks were not necessarily assertive.
Oh,
Interestingly,
ma'am,
Kaufman says
please.
both groups are curious, but the light triad's sense of curiosity is about resilience and growing and challenging themselves. The dark triad's group's sense of curiosity is about embracing or even attracting difficult situation. It's like, in other words, liking jobs that are more difficult and have more of a hazing ritual kind of to them.
Night, Kevin.
And
Mwah.
people
See
in
you
the
tomorrow
dark
night.
triad are unsettled when they don't know the answer to something. So their curiosity is they have to find the answer. Now, this next bit is the part that I found very interesting. That light triad folks have a bumpy path, and that the light triad is more associated with interpersonal guilt,
Valerie.
like survivor guilt. And that makes sense in terms of the guilt and the dissonance that we often see keep people stuck in narcissistic relationships. People who have this more light triad style may be more vulnerable to separation anxieties. And he said that people on the light triad had something he called omnipotent responsibility, which is his way of saying that people on the people who have omnipotent responsibility are very worried about the people they love, even when there's nothing to worry about. And all of this tends to be about guilt. So you can now see in this light triad and how these kinds of guilt can keep you stuck in a narcissistic relationship and hold you back from your own ambitions. And there is another tricky piece here that they found, that the light triad was associated with something that can almost sound like trauma bonding. This wanting to help someone. They had this idea of wanting to help someone who has wronged them. Kaufman identifies this as something we call in the psychological world as reaction formation, but he framed it as loving kindness. But maybe this is the problem. It's all of this loving kindness and trying to bail people out who are getting themselves into trouble over and over means that you are going to put up with the narcissist manipulations, make excuses, try to help them, and feel guilty for wanting to leave them. So to me, it feels like this light triad might very well be a setup for getting into a narcissistic relationship. Now, Kaufman makes the argument that all of us have some dark and light in us, and I actually kind of tend to agree. But the real problem is that in some kind of sort of emotionally messed up yin and yang, the dark triad and the light triad people too often end up in relationships together. The manipulation of the dark triad person gets enabled from this humanistically kind light triad person.
Are you okay, chat? This is hitting hard for me. I think a lot of us. Knowledge is power, man. Knowledge is power. We've got this.
The light triad person keeps seeing the good in the dark triad person, and all of us knows how that story ends. The darkness blocks the light, right? The light does not shine. That's what's tricky about that dark triad, light triad mix, in my estimation. The balancing act here, I really admire the work of theoreticians like Paulhus, Williams, and Kaufman. Frankly, their work makes my clinical work possible because I read their work and it really informs what I'm able to do directly with clients. The theoretical part of all of this is so important, but when we bring what they're writing about into real life, it becomes real. And all of this talk about empaths and narcissists and dark triads and light triads, it may just be these personality triads coming together in a relationship. That these really pro-social qualities, seeing the good in other people, of the light triad people who have really lovely, optimistic worldview, are believing in the good in other people, that they're getting played by the dark triad people who exploit and manipulate and get things done, often getting things done on the back of the light
Fuck's sake,
triad
Dr. Ramani.
folks. Our
Spitting
societal
truth
focus
bombs.
on success and charisma over agreeableness and empathy means that the dark triad folks often look good on paper, which can draw the light triad people in. Now listen, to all you lovely light triad folks out there, please do keep shining that light, but please be wary of your turning into that interpersonal guilt place. Not all people in narcissistic relationships are trauma bonded. Not all of them are. Some folks may just be seeing the world as beneficent and good and kind and struggle with guilt when it doesn't turn out that way, that it's not good and kind, and they can't fix it. All of this work points to the fact that the patterns we see in narcissistic relationships are real. And there are definitely people out there who are more vulnerable to this than other people, this being sort of narcissistic relationships and all the negative effects. So again, to my light triads out there, please keep your light on and keep it bright enough
Shining
so
bright.
you can see in the dark. And if I were to leave one more thought here,
I
'cause
love
this comes
Dr.
up a
Ramani.
lot.
Oh my
I get a
God.
fair amount of pushback from people saying, Dr. Ramani, you're not being nice to the narcissist. The
Fuck the
narcissists have tough
narcissists.
backstories.
Fuck
We need
the
to see the good in them.
narcissists.
If we could just see the good in them, maybe they'll see the good in themselves. It's a lovely sentiment. It really is. And when I've had the opportunity to work with clients with heavily narcissistic styles in that chair, in that room, in that controlled space, I absolutely do hold within me, for them and for them, this potentiality that they have. But one thing I'm never going to say to someone who's in a narcissistically abusive relationship that, well, you need to help them and keep seeing the good in them and help them figure it
No,
out.
get out.
Because that's
Get
your
out.
humanistic mandate. I will say those words over my dead body. That is not going to happen. I am not going
Preach,
to
Dr.
enable
Ramani,
the ongoing
preach.
abuse of someone who happens to hold a really nice, positive view, healthy view of the world, that sadly we live in a world that can't be actualized and that can't happen. And I think a lot of times people who are survivors of narcissistic abuse often feel shut down by people saying, well, maybe if you could just find the good in them and stick it out.
No.
Abuse is abuse.
Hard
Don't
no.
care about your backstory. And it ain't anybody's job to make excuses for someone else's bad behavior. Dark,
Boom.
light, or any triad in between.
Yes.
So I hope that makes this clear. I found Kaufman's
Fucking
work
great.
fascinating. Do read
I
his
love
blog.
you.
I think it's actually quite good. And it's a very provocative way to think about this. I think, again, dark triads, light triads, all very intellectual. But the problem is when those darks and lights come together, just like in your washing machine, it all makes a mess.
Run, chat. Another great one. We've learned a lot tonight as well, haven't we? This is a good series. Stop sharing. Yes. Run. Brit says, run. Get the fuck out of there. It's easier said than done, but do your best to get out of there, right? Correct. Andy, hi. Good God. I sign on and immediately Dr. Ramani slays me, man. She slays in general. I love. We will be definitely watching more of Dr. Ramani. So, chat, I'm going to sign off quickly. Congratulations to Steph, who won. I mean, do we care about anything else? The Vegemite, etc. in the raffle tonight. I'm going to do a raffle every month of various things. So it was fun. I love it. I love that for us. I love that for our community. Somewhere in the notes app of my computer, I have a bunch of quotes I've saved over the years of Dr. Ramani. Are you in our Discord, Laurie Marie? Because if you are, we'd love you to share. Well, we might even make a Dr. Ramani channel. I think we need to. Wait, I also need to brush my hair. And I didn't put lipstick on today, and I've got fake tan on my face. I'm looking a bit dirty. Whoa, shit. Okay, it's publicly buzzed Feral Friday. Have you had your gummies? Yes. She does slay. What's this say? My grandmother used to say, blowing out someone else's candle doesn't make you shine yours any brighter. Well, that's lovely, isn't it? Vegemite and Sunnies, the cool shades, bro. They're so cool. I hope your ears are even because my ears aren't even. So my Sunnies are always slightly, and my specs are always slightly off kilter, a bit like my personality. Lol. Okay, we're going to go to Feral Friday, publicly buzzed on Kick. It's so much fun. If you've been to Kick before, amazing. See you there. If you haven't, download the app. It's so fun. After the heaviness of the last couple of nights, might be good. Of course. And I'll put all the links in the description. Love your faces. See you tomorrow night at 6 Eastern for part 1 probably of we can teach you. Easy peasy. Part 1, I'd say, of pre-motions hearings from this Karen Reid trial. Look forward to more. Thank you. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Thank you so much to my beautiful moderators, Taryn, Amber. Oh my God, I can't see. Oh, Petty, Michelle, Steph, Petty, Michelle. I love your display picture. Oh my God, it's life. Amy wasn't here tonight. Can't see that at all. Aussie, not here tonight. Shelby was here a bit. She's gone to Feral Friday, I'd say. Prince Lover, Sammy came in for a bit, and the other girls that are sometimes here. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Be kind to you. Shine your light. And I'll see you tomorrow night, chat. Like the videos. Good. My ears are not even. Well, we can be odd looking together in our cool chat. Cool sunnies. Cool chatties, bae. Appreciate you all. Nanite. And Taryn, thank you so much for putting the little video of my Miss Shorty New Year as the intro outro, because we don't need no pedo pirates, right? See you tomorrow night, or see you in publicly buzzed for Friday chat. Love you. Mwah.
It's on that shorty new year, shorty new year. Come along to Camp Shorty, we're so glad you're here. Camp Shorty is where you will find family. Our mod Avengers will greet you with glee. At Camp Shorty, you can shine and shine bright, because in Shorty Camp, leader is a fucking delight.